The first thing he felt was the cold. Not the cold of winter or night, but the kind of cold that comes from deep within the bones. Noah Kingsley lay face down on black stone, and the stone was as smooth as glass. He ran his tongue over his teeth. They were all there, sharp, young. A minute ago, a guard's boot had pressed his face into the cobblestones, and his cheekbone had cracked like a dry twig. Now his cheekbone was intact. Now his teeth were intact. Now he was lying not on the cobblestones of Lower Ash, but on something that destitute rat-catchers never see in their entire lives. He propped himself up on his elbows and opened his eyes. A hall, round, 40 meters in diameter. The vaulted ceiling soars upward and vanishes into the darkness so high that there is simply no ceiling. The floor of black basalt is polished to a mirror-like shine, reflecting his own face, gaunt, dirty, alive. In the center of the hall stands a throne made of bones, skulls of creatures Noah had never seen in any bestiary, ribs the size of ceiling beams. All of it fused together, intertwined, and entwined with roots that were still alive. They quivered, slowly, as if they were breathing. 12 skeletons lay in a circle around the throne. Each skull wears a crown, rusty, warped. 12 kings, 12 dead men, and silence. An absolute, oppressive, muffled silence that makes you want to scream just to make sure your ears are working. Noah stood up. His knees weren't shaking. That was strange because Noah Kingsley's knees were always shaking. 24 years in a body that had been malnourished since birth. 2 broken legs. 18 scars. A body that feared everything and everyone. But now his knees stood steady. He looked at the throne, then at the skeletons, then back at the throne. What kicked in his mind wasn't fear or panic, but something else. Something from a past life he remembered in its entirety. A plumbing engineer, Chicago. 8 years in the storm sewer system under loop. 2,400 kilometers of pipes he knew by heart. Hydraulics, ventilation, biogas, rat behavior in closed ecosystems. He died a stupid death. He went to shut off a valve during a downpour. His partner forgot about him and turned on the pump. His body was found 2 days later in a sedimentation tank. His last thought before dying wasn't about family or friends. His last thought was about the hydroponic farm he'd been building in his basement for 3 years to feed the homeless on the south side. He didn't finish it. That hurt more than death itself. And now, here he stands, in the body of a dead rat-catcher from the medieval slums. In a hall with 12 dead kings, before a throne made of bones. And the throne was breathing. He took a step, then a second. The bones beneath his fingers felt warm. Not hot, but specifically warm, like a body that had just stopped living, or like a body that hadn't yet begun. Noah turned to face the 12 skeletons and grinned. It was his first grin in 24 years of inhabiting someone else's body. He sat down on the throne. The world shuddered. Not metaphorically. The floor of the throne room swayed. Roots on the throne shot upward, wrapping around his wrists and ankles. Not painfully, but firmly. The basalt beneath his feet began to crack, and light poured out of the cracks, a dim, greenish glow, like the bioluminescence of deep-sea creatures. And a voice, a woman's, calm, emotionless, like a subway announcer naming the next station. The voice said that the heir had been found, that the initialization of the throne of the 12th dynasty was complete, that he was welcome home. Noah sat in a bone throne, entwined by living roots, in a hall with 12 dead kings at a depth he did not yet know. An interface unfolded before his eyes, translucent, greenish, like an old monitor. The register of subjects. A list of creatures who had acknowledged him as their ruler. 400 rats, 60 slugs, 12 spiders, 3 flocks of bats, each one's loyalty, specialization. Their names were not yet listed because the king bestows the names. Crown points, 100, title, heir. And on a separate line, flashing red, restriction. The Lord of the Underworld cannot leave the dungeon for more than 6 consecutive hours. The 7th hour, minus 10 crown points per minute. In the 8th hour, the throne grows cold. In the 10th hour, the loss of all subjects. Noah read this twice. Then he leaned back against the throne's backrest, and the roots loosened their grip slightly, as if they realized he wasn't going to run away. He looked up at the ceiling, which wasn't there. He looked at the 12 skeletons that had once been alive and had sat in this very chair. He thought that in Chicago, people would sue over working conditions like these. The roots let him go. He stood up. His legs held him steady. The body was foreign, but functional. He walked around the room in a circle. The basalt walls were smooth. No doors, no windows. Just one opening in the eastern wall. Torn, old. Beyond the opening lay darkness, and a smell that Noah would recognize among 1,000. Sewers, wastewater, methane, organic matter, decaying biomass. To anyone in this world, it was the smell of death and filth. To a plumbing engineer from Chicago, it was the smell of a workplace. Noah approached the opening. He peered inside. A tunnel, brickwork, about 2 meters in diameter, a 1.5% slope. The flow heads southwest. Condensation on the walls meant there was ventilation, though it was weak. The temperature felt like 14 degrees. The echo was short, meaning the tunnel branched off 30 meters ahead. He figured all this out in 10 seconds without thinking. It was second nature. Because 8 years in Chicago's sewers isn't just a job, it's a reflex. He returned to the throne, sat down, opened the logbook. 400 rats. Average weight, 340 grams. He knew everything about rats. A single rat's exploration radius in a familiar tunnel is up to 800 meters per hour. Movement speed is 4 meters per second when running. Route memory up to 2 kilometers. Return to the starting point with accuracy to the meter. An engineer must first measure, then act. Noah issued the first royal command of his life. 400 rats, fan-shaped formation. Each assigned a number. Each goes to its own sector. Each returns in exactly 1 hour. The interface flashed. -8 crown points. 400 gray shadows burst forth from crevices, cracks, behind skeletons, and out of the darkness. The hall filled with rustling for 3 seconds, then silence fell again. Noah pulled a piece of charcoal from his pocket. He crouched down. He began to draw on the basalt floor. 7 minutes later, the first rat returned. Number 12, northern sector. Noah closed his eyes and saw. Not with his eyes, but with something else. The image was like that from a low-resolution camera. A tunnel, a fork in the road. The right passage was blocked. The left one went up at an angle. There was light there. 10 minutes later, 20 more returned. 20 minutes later, 100. In 40 minutes, 300. Each one brought a piece of the map. Noah drew with charcoal on the floor, and his hands moved of their own accord. Tunnels, forks, collector chambers, drains, ventilation shafts, underground cisterns. By the end of the hour, he had a map of the underground passages of the capital, Valancourt, accurate to within 40 meters, 214 tunnels, 38 collection chambers, 12 vertical shafts leading to the surface, and something else. He marked the exit points on the map and compared them with what he knew about the city above ground. Tunnel 7 exits beneath the treasury. Tunnel 14 runs directly beneath the palace water supply. Tunnels 31 through 36 pass beneath the blocks containing the 6 ducal residences. And Tunnel 42. Tunnel 42 ends in a dead end right beneath the Morin estate. That's where the smell was coming from. Not a sewer smell, something else. Chemical, pungent. The very same smell from the barrels of black sludge that Noah had seen 3 days ago in the slums. The ones for which the Duke's son, Julian Morin, had ordered him killed. Noah looked at the map. The city from above and the city from below. The same streets, the same houses. But above, marble and gold. And below, pipes and rats. And now he was king of what lay below. The interface flashed. Plus 12 crown points. Title updated. Cartographer of Darkness. Noah took a sip of rusty water from the flask that had somehow survived the fall. He looked at the 12 skeletons wearing crowns. All 400 rats had returned. No, not all of them. 399. Rat number 217 hadn't returned. She'd gone into Tunnel 9 in the eastern sector. The last thing Noah saw through her eyes was a shadow. Big, fast, with teeth. Noah marked Tunnel 9 on the map with a cross. Then he circled the circle around it. There were large creatures in Chicago's sewers, too. But they didn't eat rats. They ate cats. Nona's voice sounded right behind him, and Noah didn't flinch. She said the eastern sector had been sealed off for the last 300 years. That something lived there that shouldn't be awakened. Noah turned around. A girl, pale to the point of bluishness, black hair down to the floor, eyes like two bottomless wells, semi-transparent, visible only to him. 400 years in this hall. The last living voice of the throne, Nona. She looked at him with an expression he read instantly. Weariness, an ancient, seared-in weariness of a being who had outlived 12 kings and did not wish to become attached to the 13th. Noah nodded. He said he wouldn't touch the eastern sector for now. Then he asked where he could find anything here besides rusty water. Nona blinked. She had clearly been expecting questions about power, about magic, about the kingdom's fate, but he asked about water. She pointed to a niche in the wall that he hadn't noticed. There stood a jug, made of stone, with a lid. The water inside turned out to be clear and cold. Next to the jug lay some shards, a cup, broken, old, 300 years old. Nona looked away. Noah picked up one shard. He turned it over in his fingers. Thin ceramic, handmade, a remnant of a pattern on the bottom, a flower. He carefully gathered all the shards and put them in his pocket. Nona asked why. Noah said he'd glue them back together later. Nona said nothing, but he noticed her lips tremble. Noah didn't sleep that first night. Night is a relative concept when you're at a depth you can't measure without a barometer. He sat on the floor of the throne room and sorted the shards of Nona's cup by size. 17 fragments, 3 large ones, the rest were small. There was no glue, but there was slime. Noah opened the register. 60 slimes, loyalty 33, specialization, secretion. The slimes secreted 2 types of substance. The first type was transparent slime for movement. The second type was a thick, whitish mass for attaching to vertical surfaces. When it dried, the second type became as hard as mortar. Noah summoned a slime. A creature the size of a palm crawled out of a crack in the wall, brown, shiny, with 2 short tentacles on its head. Noah ordered it to deposit a drop of the adhesive slime on each joint. -1 crown point. The slug worked slowly and precisely. An hour later, the cup was assembled, crooked, with visible seams, but in one piece. Noah placed it next to the jug. He poured in some water. It didn't leak. Nona stood in the corner of the hall and pretended not to be looking. Noah pretended not to notice. It was the first night of his reign, and he had spent it gluing together someone else's cup. Mourning. That too was relative. Noah determined the time by the rats' behavior. The rats became active twice a day, a morning peak and a nighttime peak. Between them lay 4 hours of lull. Now it was the morning peak. 399 rats were rustling in the tunnels. Noah sat on the floor in front of the map and thought. Nona stood beside him. She began to speak, and Noah realized that 400 years of silence had made her speech unbearably formal. She addressed him as, "Your Majesty," after every word. She spoke of coronation protocols, of the rituals of the 12th dynasty, of the duties of the Lord of the Underworld. Noah listened. He took it all in. He asked questions not about rituals, but about engineering. How deep was the throne room? Nona replied that it was about 40 meters. What type of rock was above them? A basalt massif. Were there any natural aquifers? Yes, 3. At depths of 20 meters, 12 meters, and 6 meters. Noah asked how she knew this. Nona said that the throne senses everything within the earth within a radius 1 kilometer. Rocks, water, metal, roots, voids, living beings. Noah froze. Then he asked if he could access that sense. Nona said that the Lord gains access to all of Throne's functions as his crown points increase. He currently has 104 points. Access to geosensing unlocks at 500. Noah nodded. He wrote it down on the wall with charcoal. 500. He underlined it. Then he returned to the map. 214 tunnels, 38 collection chambers, 12 vertical shafts. He knew this, but the map was rough. Accuracy, 40 meters. Enough for reconnaissance, not enough for construction. He needed a map accurate to the meter. For that, he needed spiders, not rats. Noah opened the table. 12 spiders. Loyalty, 28. Specialization, weaving. Sensory webs. The spiders of this world were larger than those on Earth. Their leg span was up to 30 centimeters. They wove webs not only to catch prey, but also for navigation. Every thread of the web transmitted vibrations. A spider could sense the size and shape of a void by how the web stretched within it resonated. Noah issued a second royal order. 12 spiders. Each goes to one of the 12 key tunnels. Each stretches a web from wall to wall every 10 meters. Each web is a sensor. Tunnel dimensions, presence of obstacles, air movement, water movement, movement of living creatures. -4 crown points. The spiders were gone. Noah waited. He spent this time studying the throne, a bone structure, 12 types of bones, skulls from at least 4 species, ribs of a single species, but a very large one, vertebrae of yet another. Everything was fused together by roots. The roots extended into the floor, through the floor into the bedrock, and further down. Noah didn't know how deep. He asked Nona. Nona said that the throne's roots reached the heart of the earth. Noah asked what she meant by heart. Nona said it wasn't a metaphor. Noah made a mental note. 6 hours later, the spiders returned. The data was astonishing, accurate to within half a meter. Noah spent 4 hours redrawing the map. The new version covered the entire floor of the throne room. Scale, 1 to 100. Every tunnel, every fork, every elevation change. Slopes, width, height, condition of the masonry, presence of cracks, wet areas, dry areas, temperature by zone, and something new. The spiders discovered 6 chambers that the rats had missed. 4 of them were bricked up. 1 was flooded. One was open. Chamber 39, between tunnels 15 and 16, beneath the Nizhny Papel neighborhood. Depth, 22 meters. Area, approximately 200 square meters. Dry, warm, with natural ventilation through a crack in the ceiling. And there was a spring inside it, an underground spring. The water came from the second aquifer. Noah looked at that spot on the map. 200 square meters. A spring. Ventilation. Beneath the city's poorest neighborhood. The engineer inside him was already doing the math. 200 square meters. Ceiling height. Air volume. Ventilation rate through the crack. Spring flow rate. Water temperature. He didn't yet know that in 4 days, this chamber would save a child's life. But he already knew he'd found the base. Noah turned to Nona. He said he needed to get into chamber 39. Nona asked why. Noah said that in this world, there were 20,000 people living right above this chamber and drinking poisoned water. That he'd seen barrels of black sludge that Duke Morin's men were dumping by the ton. That the sludge seeps into the third aquifer. That the third aquifer feeds the wells of Lower Ash. That children are getting sick. That children are dying. Nona looked at him. Then she said that the previous 12 kings had begun by asking about power, about territory, about enemies, about strength. He was the first to start with water. Noah shrugged. He said that water is power. It's just that not everyone understands that. He assembled a squad, 20 scout rats to map out the route, 2 spiders for sensory monitoring, 10 slugs to mark the path, -3 crown points. They set off. Tunnel 15 was old. The brickwork was cracked. The vault had sagged in places, water up to the ankles. The temperature was 11 degrees. Noah walked and counted his steps, an old habit. In Chicago, he used to measure distances in steps when the GPS failed underground. And the GPS always failed underground. After 412 steps, the tunnel turned. After 620, the descent began. After 800, the rats grew restless. Noah stopped. Ahead lay darkness, but not the usual kind. This darkness was moving, slowly, heavily, with a wet sound. Noah ordered 2 rats to advance 20 meters. They returned a minute later. One was intact. The other was missing its tail. The data via the tablet was vague but sufficient. A creature lay ahead in the tunnel, long, at least 3 meters, slippery, cold-blooded. It was blocking the passage completely. Noah looked into the darkness, then at the tablet. The Lord's voice worked on any creature whose niche was the depths, darkness, and decay. The question was whether he had enough points to subjugate something that large. Nona stood silently behind him, but the silence was tense. Noah took a step forward, then another. On the 3rd step, he saw eyes, yellow, vertical pupils, 2 eyes at knee level. The creature lay in the water and stared at him, a blind salamander, except it wasn't blind, and it wasn't small, 3.5 meters long, white, translucent skin with dark veins visible beneath it. The gills on its neck pulsed. Its mouth was closed, but Noah could see the outline of its teeth through the skin of its cheeks. Lots of teeth. He activated the voice of the Lord. -15 crown points. That was expensive. The salamander twitched. Its gills opened. Its eyes widened. It sensed him, and Noah sensed it in return. Fear, hunger, territoriality, loneliness. This creature had lived here alone for a very long time, 70 years or more. It fed on rats and fish from the underground drains. It had never seen anyone larger than itself. And then he came. The record was updated. Subject 474. Species: deep-dwelling salamander. Gender: female. Age: approximately 80 years. Loyalty: 11. Name: blank. Noah crouched down. He looked into her yellow eyes. She was unattractive. Day 3. Noah didn't keep track of the hours. He was counting cubic meters. Chamber 39 needed preparation. The walls were dry, but the floor was uneven. The spring flowed steadily, but without a gutter, the water spread across the entire area. Ventilation through a crack in the ceiling provided an airflow, but it was insufficient for people to stay there permanently. Noah made a list. A gutter to channel the water, a storage tank, a drainage system, widening the ventilation crack, leveling the floor in the work area. He could do all this with his own hands and those of his subjects, without money, without steel tools, using whatever was available. He started with the gutter, slugs. Their adhesive secretion, when applied to stone and allowed to dry, created a waterproof coating. Noah lined up 20 slugs in a row from the spring to the far wall. Each left a strip of slime a palm's width wide. The strips joined together. After 4 hours, a trough had formed, rough but functional. Water flowed through it and collected in a depression by the far wall, a natural depression in the floor, 0.5 meter deep, 2 meters in diameter, a reservoir. Noah ordered the slugs to coat the bottom and walls of the depression with the same substance, a watertight basin. Within an hour, it was full. About 1.5 cubic meters of clean water. That would be enough drinking water for 50 people for a day. Not much yet, but enough for now. Ventilation. A crack in the ceiling ran upward at an angle. Noah sent 2 spiders up there. They returned with data. The crack was 11 meters long. It led to the basement of an abandoned house on the surface. The house was empty. The roof had collapsed. No one lived there. Air flowed freely, but the volume was insufficient. Noah decided to widen the crack later, when resources were available. For now, it's enough to work. He returned to the throne room by evening. He sat down. He opened the ledger. Crown points: 88. He'd spent a lot. He needed to save. Every subject brought to a loyalty level of 50 grants 1 point per day, permanently. Right now, not a single subject had reached 50. The closest were Gertrude at 14 and rat number 1 at 19. It was a long road ahead. Nona stood by the wall, staring at her cup. A kiss with water. Noah noticed she was standing closer to it than yesterday. He lay down on the floor. The basalt was warm from the roots of the throne. He closed his eyes. He woke up to a sound, a rustle, not a rat's, a human's. Someone was crawling through Tunnel 3. Tunnel 3 led to the surface through a vertical shaft with chipped steps. Noah sat up. He opened the chart. The rats in Tunnel 3 were signaling movement. One creature, small, fast, a human, a child. Noah stood up. He left the throne room through the breach. He headed toward Tunnel 3. Nona called out to him. She said that the Lord does not go to guests himself. Guests come to the Lord. Noah did not turn around. He said that there was a child in Tunnel 3, and a child in the sewers at a depth of 30 meters. That's not a guest, but a problem. He found her at the fork where Tunnels 3 and 4 meet. A girl, about 16 years old, but she looks 13 because she's so thin. Dark skin, short black hair, ragged as if cut with a knife. 3 layers of rags for clothes. A rat is sitting on her shoulder, alive, tame. The rat wasn't one of Noah's subjects. It was wild, but calm. The girl was crouching against the wall, trembling, not from the cold, but from fear. She was running from someone above. Noah stopped 3 meters away from her. The rats of his vanguard sat along the walls and didn't move. The girl saw him. Her eyes were huge in the darkness. She asked who he was. Her voice was high-pitched, with an accent, Eastern. Noah said he lived there. The girl looked at the rats along the walls, then at him, then at the rats again. She asked why the rats weren't running away. Noah said they were his. The girl was silent for a moment. Then she said her name was Honey Pock, and that 2 guards were chasing her, and if he turned her in, she'd bite him. Noah didn't smile, but something stirred inside him. He knew that name. Not personally, but the way people know their neighbors in the slums. Honey Pock, Queen of the Rats of Lower Ashes. A street child. Her parents were from the eastern lands. They died of a fever because not a single healer in Valancourt would treat people with eyes like hers. She was 12 at the time. She lived alone for 4 years. She stole. She ran across rooftops. She knew the upper levels of the sewers better than any adult. And yes, Noah once shared his bread with her. Just that one time. She remembered it. Noah crouched down to be at her level. He asked what the guards wanted. Hani said she'd stolen an apple, just one, from a merchant in the upper square. The guard, Tor, saw her and gave chase. Not for the apple, but because Tor is always chasing her. Because Tor hates everyone from the eastern lands. Because Tor hates anyone weaker than him. Noah nodded. Gavin Tor, that very boot, that very guard who had slammed Noah's face into the cobblestones 3 days ago. It's a small world, especially down here. Hani sat there trembling, and a rat sat on her shoulder, staring at Noah. Noah's rat, number 7, sat on the floor a meter away from the girl and stared at Hani's pet rat. The 2 rats stared at each other. Noah noticed that Hani was clutching something besides the apple. A whistle, wooden, small, broken, split right down the middle. Hani caught his gaze and hid the whistle behind her back. Noah reached out his hand. Hani wouldn't let him take it. He didn't insist. Instead, he asked how long ago it had broken. Hani said a long time ago, that it belonged to her mom, that her mom used to play it when Hani couldn't fall asleep, that Hani had been carrying it for 4 years and 3 months, that it cracked a week ago when Hani fell off the roof. Noah reached out again. This time, Hani gave it to him. He examined the whistle. A simple design, a tube with 3 holes. The crack ran along the body. If he just glued it back together, the sound would be rattly. He'd need an insert. Noah reached into his pocket. A Ratcatcher always has junk in his pockets. Wire, scraps of leather, tiny gears from a clock mechanism he'd found at the dump a month ago and taken apart out of boredom. He pulled out a gear, a small one, copper, flat. He held it up to the crack. It fit. He summoned a slug, just one, -1 point. A drop of fixing slime on the gear into the crack. Wait 10 minutes. It dried. Noah blew into the whistle. The sound came out clear and high-pitched, with a light metallic overtone from the gear. Not the same as before. Different, but beautiful. Hani watched. Noah held out the whistle again. Hani took it, brought it to her lips, blowed. The sound echoed through the tunnel, high-pitched, sharp, sad. Hani froze. Then her face twitched, and she began to cry, silently. Tears streamed down her dirty cheeks, and she didn't wipe them away or look away. She was crying for the first time in 4 years. The rat on her shoulder pressed itself against her neck. Noah sat beside her, silent. He didn't hug her. He didn't offer words of comfort. He didn't stroke her head. He just sat there in the darkness, silent, while she cried. It cost him 0 crown points, but a line appeared on the scoreboard, a recognition point, the first one, from a living person on the surface. The interface flashed quietly, no chime, no fanfare, just a number, 1. Hani stopped crying after a few minutes. She wiped her face with her sleeve. She looked at him. She asked who he really was. Noah said he used to be a Ratcatcher, but now he didn't know. Hani looked at the rats along the walls, which sat still and didn't move. She said she knew. She said he was the Rat King. Noah thought that of all his titles, he liked this one best. Hani didn't leave. She stayed in Tunnel 3 until morning. She slept on the floor, curled up in a ball, a rat on her shoulder, a whistle in her hand. Noah covered her with his cloak. The coat stank of the sewers, but was warm. In the morning, she went back upstairs. She promised to come back. Noah asked why. Hani said she liked it here, that the rats were calm here, that he was calm here, that no one upstairs was ever calm. She started climbing up the shaft. Noah watched her scramble up, quickly, deftly, as if she'd grown right out of the walls. Halfway up, she stopped. She turned and looked down. She said she'd forgotten to mention something. That the guards had been talking in the square that morning about the decree, that King Alaric had signed the document, that in 37 days troops would enter Lower Ashes, that everyone would be evicted or killed, that the houses would be razed to the ground, that they would build a marble avenue to mark the dynasty's 300th anniversary. 20,000 people, 37 days. Hani said this and climbed further up. Noah stood in the tunnel. 399 rats sat along the walls and stared at him. Gertrude lay in Tunnel 15 and could feel his heartbeat through the vibrations of the water. 60 slugs were waiting. 12 spiders were waiting. Nona stood in the throne room and said nothing. Noah thought. 37 days, 20,000 people. No army, no money, no name. Just pipes, rats, slugs, spiders, a salamander, and a 21st century engineering degree. In Chicago, he once restored water service to 6 neighborhoods in 12 days after a flood, alone, with 3 assistants and a budget of $0 because the city coffers were empty. His boss said it was impossible. Noah did it on the 10th day. He turned and walked back to the throne room. He sat down on the throne. The roots wrapped around his wrists as usual. The ledger unfolded before his eyes. 37 days. Noah began to count. Day 4. Noah hadn't left the throne room for 16 hours. He was sketching, on the walls, on the floor, with charcoal and chalk he'd found in one of the walled-up rooms. Nona watched. Noah explained to her what he was doing, not for her, but for himself. When an engineer speaks aloud, he finds mistakes. He spoke like this. The task, 20,000 people, 37 days, King Alaric's troops. Noah has no army capable of standing against them. 400 rats aren't an army, they're a reconnaissance unit. So a head-on clash is out of the question. That means we need to ensure the troops don't enter, or that they enter but are unable to act, or they enter and see something that will make them retreat on their own. Any of these 3 options requires infrastructure, a base, resources, people. Right now, he has camera 39 with a power source. He has a map. He has subjects. He has no people. He has no allies on the surface except for a 16-year-old thief with a rat on her shoulder. That's not enough. Noah figured out that he needs at least 4 people. A scout on the surface, a civil engineer, an informant in the upper light, an informant in the church, 4 points of contact, 4 pairs of eyes, 4 sources of information. Without this, he's blind. But first, water. The people of Lower Ash aren't dying because of the decree. The decree takes effect in 37 days. People are dying right now, from the black sludge that the Morin house is dumping into the tunnels. The sludge is poisoning the third aquifer. The third aquifer feeds the neighborhood's wells. Children get sick first because they drink more water per unit of body weight. Noah knew this math. On Earth, he'd seen the reports on Flint, on Jackson, dozens of cities where water killed slowly and silently, and no one did anything until it was too late. It will be too late here too, if not today. He went down to Chamber 39. He took a squad with him, 30 rats, 15 slugs, and 4 spiders. Gertrude stayed behind to guard Tunnel 15, -2 crown points. In Chamber 39, he worked with his hands, literally. With his bare hands, he shoveled rocks and dirt off the floor. He leveled the area around the spring. The slugs coated the treated sections with a binding secretion. In 6 hours, he built a filter. The principle was simple. 3 stages. The first stage is rough filtration, stone grit collected from the tunnels. Water passes through a layer of grit 30 centimeters thick, and large particles are trapped. The second stage, sand. Noah found a vein of sand in the wall of Tunnel 16, a layer of sand 20 centimeters thick. Third stage, charcoal. Charcoal is the best natural sorbent for organic contaminants. In Tunnel 11, Noah found the remains of old wooden decking, rotten and half-rotten. He collected it, hauled it to Chamber 39, and burned it in a niche using methane from sewage as fuel. He obtained charcoal, not much, 4 kilograms, not enough for a full-scale filter, but enough to prove the concept. A 10-centimeter layer of charcoal, 3 stages. Water from the contaminated third aquifer passes through the filter. The water at the outlet is safe to drink. Not perfect, but not contaminated. Noah tasted it. It tasted of earth and iron. No bitterness, no chemical acridness. Living water. Now he had to get it back up to the surface. He studied the map. Vertical shaft 5 opened onto an alley between 2 buildings in Lower Ash. The alley was a dead end. No windows, no passers-by. The manhole cover was welded shut, but the hinges were rusty, and Noah pried them open with a rock in 20 minutes. He emerged to the surface for the first time since the coronation. Light hit his eyes. Daylight. Gray. The sky over Valencourt was overcast, and it smelled of smoke, manure, bread, and sweat. He stood in the alley and counted. 6 hours. That was the limit. The timer had started. Nizhny Pepel looked even worse than he remembered. Houses, if you could call them that. Wooden frames covered with rags and pieces of leather, straw roofs, mud up to his knees. Children sat in the doorsteps, and many had gray faces. Gray faces meant poisoning. Noah knew these signs. He returned to the mine. He went down. He drew water from the filter into 3 leather wineskins he'd found in one of the bricked-up rooms. Ancient, cracked, but still holding water. He climbed back up, stepped out into the alley. The timer read 1 hour and 40 minutes. He walked through the neighborhood, a beggar among beggars. No one paid him any attention. He found a well, the central one, the one the whole neighborhood drank from. The water in it was murky, with an iridescent film on the surface. No one knew that this film was the result of a reaction with heavy metals. He knew that the children who drank this water would fall ill within a week and die within a month. He knew this, but there was nothing he could do about the well right now, because the source of contamination was still active. The people of Morin drained the sludge every 3rd day. Noah had seen the schedule from the tracks in Tunnel 42. Fresh and old tracks alternated at 3-day intervals. The next draining was in 2 days. He couldn't stop the draining, not yet, but he could provide the people with clean water from another source. He walked through the neighborhood carrying 3 water skins. He stopped at a house he recognized, the Vane's house. Lyra Vane, 19 years old, a thief, redhead, sharp-tongued. Her younger brother, Elliot, had been sick for 3 weeks now. Noah stood at the door. He thought he looked like a vagrant with stolen water. For the most part, that was true. The door was a ragged piece of cloth. He pushed the rag aside. Inside, it was dim. The smell of illness, sweetish and nauseating. A boy lay on a straw mat, about 7 years old, a gray face, chapped lips, eyes closed. Lyra was sitting next to the mat. She hadn't been sleeping. Her eyes were red. Her hands were in the water. She was wiping her brother's forehead with a wet rag, water from the well, that very same poisoned water. She was trying to cure him with the very thing that was killing him. Noah stood in the doorway. Lyra looked up. She recognized him. He saw surprise, anger, and exhaustion flash across her eyes. She told him to get lost. She said she didn't need help from rotten Noah. She said she had no money, no food, and nothing worth stealing. Noah didn't leave. He set the wineskin down by the entrance. He said it was water, clean, not from the well. He said the boy shouldn't be given water from the well. He said the well was poisoned. Lyra froze. Then she said he was lying. Noah said he wasn't lying. He said the poison came from the Morin estate through underground drains into the third aquifer, and from there into the well. He said that the black sludge in the barrels he'd seen a week ago was waste from alchemical experiments. He said that's why they killed him, or rather, tried to. Lyra looked at him, at the water skin, at her brother. Noah said he could prove it. He told her to give the boy water from the wineskin, only from the wineskin, for 3 days. If the boy didn't get better in 3 days, Noah would leave and never come back. Lyra was silent. Then she stood up. She walked over to the wineskin. She opened it. She sniffed it. She tasted it. It tasted like iron, no bitterness. She looked at Noah. Noah saw the moment she made her decision. Not because she believed him, because the boy was dying, and she had no other options. She took the wineskin, lifted her brother's head, brought it to his lips. Elliot drank, slowly. Day 5. Noah went up to the surface every morning. 3 water skins, 3 addresses, mine 5, the alley. There and back in 4 hours. He'd worked out the route. 23 minutes to climb up, 18 minutes to climb down. The rest of the time spent above ground. Hani came to Tunnel 3 every evening. She brought news. Me trivial, everyday stuff. Who said what at the market, where the guards were stationed, which houses had begun to be boarded up in anticipation of the decree. Noah listened. He took notes. Every little detail went onto the map. Hani didn't ask questions about the throne room. She saw rats and slugs and spiders, and that was normal to her. She had grown up in the sewers. For her, the underground was home. For the rest of the people up above, it was hell. Noah appreciated that difference. On the 5th day, he went to see Lyra. The timer is on. Shaft 5, alley, block, the vein house, a rag for a door. He pushed it aside and saw Elliot. The boy was sitting, not lying down, sitting, eyes open. His face was still gray, but his lips weren't chapped. He was drinking water from a wineskin, by himself, holding it with both hands. Lyra was standing by the wall. She was looking at Noah. 2 days ago, her eyes had been filled with anger and exhaustion. Now it was something else. She didn't know what to call it, and neither did Noah. She said the boy was doing better, that he'd stopped coughing up blood last night, that this morning he'd asked for food for the first time in a week. Noah set down a new water skin. He took the empty one away. He turned toward the exit. Lyra called out to him. He stopped. She asked where the water came from. Noah said it came from underground. Lyra said she'd figured that out. She asked how he purified it. Noah explained. Briefly, 3 stages: stone, sand, charcoal. Lyra listened. Then she said he didn't look like a Ratcatcher. Noah said he wasn't a Ratcatcher. Not anymore. Lyra was silent for a moment. Then she said his name. Noah. Not Rotten Noah. Not, hey you, Noah. It was the first time anyone in this world had called him by his real name, not a nickname. The display flashed. Lyra. Favorability 10. Noah walked out. He walked 2 blocks. He stopped. A man was standing in front of him. Not a guard, not a beggar, something in between. Of average height, middle-aged. His clothes weren't expensive, but they were clean. An ordinary face, the kind you forget in a minute. The man looked at Noah, then at the wineskin in his hand, then at the shaft around the corner from which Noah had emerged the last 2 mornings in a row. The man said nothing. He turned around. He left. Noah stood there thinking. Someone had noticed his route. For 2 days in a row, he'd emerged from the same manhole, at the same time. Stupid. Predictable. That's not what a scout does. That's what an engineer used to routine does. Noah returned to the underground. He ordered the rats to monitor Shaft 5 from the outside, around the clock. If anyone approaches the manhole closer than 3 meters, he must be notified. -2 points. In the throne room, he sat and thought. 35 days until the decree. Elliot is recovering. Lyra called him by name. Hani comes every evening. But all of this is not enough. Far too little. 20,000 people. Noah did the math. If the filter in chamber 39 is running at full capacity, it produces 1.5 cubic meters of clean water per day. That's enough drinking water for 50 people. There are 20,000 in the district. He needs 40 such filters, or one that's 400 times more powerful, or a different approach. He looked at the map, Tunnel 42, the Moran estate, the source of the contamination. He could stop the outflow. If Tunnel 42 were physically sealed off, the sludge would stop flowing into the third horizon. In a week, the wells would clean themselves. In 2 weeks, the water would be safe to drink. Problem. If the Morans discovered the tunnel was blocked, they'd find another way. Or they'd start looking for whoever blocked it, or both. He needed to block it so it looked natural. A cave-in, a landslide, a natural blockage. Noah thought it over. He knew what a natural collapse looked like. He'd seen hundreds in Chicago. A crack in the vault, water washing away the mortar between the bricks. The bricks settle, the vault collapses. It looks like an accident. An engineer could create the conditions for a collapse in 2 days. Noah could do it in 1 day. He has rats that can gnaw through the mortar, slugs that can dissolve it with their acidic secretions, and water to finish the job. He headed for Tunnel 42. With him were 20 rats and 5 slugs. Tunnel 42 was wider than the others, 3 meters in diameter. The brickwork was new, recently repaired. The Morans had invested in their garbage chute. There were tracks on the floor, boots, the wheels of a cart, and the smell, chemical, acrid, that very same one. Noah walked through the tunnel, counting his steps. On the 208th step, he found the spot. The tunnel's vault. A crack. A thin one. A natural one. About 20 years old. An aquifer ran above the crack. Noah knew this because the wall around the crack was damp. If the crack were widened by 3 centimeters, water would start seeping through. In 12 hours, the mortar around the crack would become saturated. In 18 hours, the bricks would begin to shift. In 24 hours, the vault would collapse. A natural collapse. No one would suspect a thing. Noah gave orders to the rats. 10 rats were gnawing at the mortar around the crack. Widen it by 3 centimeters. No more. Precision was crucial. If the crack is too wide, the vault will collapse sooner than intended. -3 points. The rats worked for 4 hours. Fine crumbs of mortar fell down. Noah stood nearby and supervised. When the crack reached the desired size, he stopped them. Water began to seep out. A drop, another drop, a thin trickle. Noah watched it and calculated. Flow rate, volume, time until critical mass. 22 hours, ±3. It will give way. The tunnel will collapse on its own. Morin's men will arrive with barrels in 2 days and find the blockage. A natural blockage. The limestone vault couldn't withstand the water pressure. It happens. They'll start clearing it out. It'll take a week. Then Noah will collapse the tunnel again, and again, and again, until Morin runs out of patience or money, or both. On the way back, he stopped in Tunnel 11, old wooden planks, the kind he used to burn coal on. But the planks weren't just wood. Something else lay beneath the rotten boards. Noah dug through the boards. Metal, rusty, dark. Not iron, something heavier, denser. He scraped off the rust with his fingernail. Beneath it, the metal was black with a blue sheen. Noah didn't know what kind of metal it was. He'd never seen anything like it on Earth, but he knew it wasn't trash. The shape, a strip, about a meter long, a palm's width, 2 centimeters thick, a blank. Someone had once brought a blank here and discarded it, or hidden it. Noah picked up the strip and carried it to the throne room. Nona saw the metal and froze. Her eyes, which were usually empty and calm, widened. She said it was deep steel, that it's mined only below the 1st kilometer, that the kings of the 12th dynasty forged weapons from it, that the last blade made of deep steel was destroyed 300 years ago along with the last queen. Noah placed the strip next to the throne. He asked if he work on it. Nona said they needed a blacksmith, a special one, who knew how to work with subterranean heat. The melting point of deep steel was 400 degrees higher than that of ordinary steel. Noah thought, a blacksmith. There was a blacksmith in Lower Ash, or rather, a female blacksmith, Rachel Donovan, Rhea, 31 years old, a widow. She repairs locks, knives, and armor, sturdy, sun-weathered, silent. Her husband had been a guard, the only decent guard in all of Valancourt. He refused to beat up beggars. They killed him. The official story, a traitor. He sold secrets to the enemies of the crown. Rachel believed that story for 5 years. She hated her husband for 5 years. She wore his ring on a string around her neck and hated herself for wearing it. Her smithy stood on the corner of Burnt Willow Street, small, sooty, with an anvil that was worth more than the entire house. Noah knew where it was, and he knew something else, too. Rachel's blacksmith shop stood directly above one of the 12 sealed entrances to the underground network. It was on the map, Point 8, a vertical shaft, sealed. The seal was old, 300 years. Nona confirmed it. 12 sealed entrances, 12 connection points between the upper world and the lower world, each located beneath a specific building, each sealed with stone and magic. Noah asked if the seal could be opened. Nona said that the Lord could open any seal in his kingdom. The cost 50 crown points per seal. Noah had 73 points, just enough. He thought it over. Unsealing the entrance beneath the blacksmith's shop would mean gaining direct access to the surface through an ally's house, if Rachel became an ally. If not, it would be a hole in their defenses. Too soon. It's still too soon. Noah removed the strip of deep steel from the niche next to Nona's cup. 2 objects, a cup and a blade, old and new. Tenderness and a weapon, the 2 poles of his future kingdom. He lay down on the floor of the throne room. He closed his eyes. A line flashed on the tabella. Rat number 44 at shaft 5 on the surface had detected movement. The same man, of average height, of middle age, an unremarkable face. He was standing by the hatch. He was looking down. Then he left. For the 2nd time that day, someone was watching shaft 5. Someone knew that someone was coming out of there. Noah didn't know who it was, but he knew he now had one more problem. He rolled onto his side. The roots of the throne pulsed in the floor, warm, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of something enormous deep below. Nona stood by her cup, drinking water, in small sips, from a full cup. She thought Noah was asleep. He wasn't asleep. He saw her drinking, saw her hand trembling on the handle, and saw something resembling peace appear on her pale face for the first time in 400 years. Noah closed his eyes. 35 days. The boy is recovering. Tunnel 42 will collapse in 20 hours. The deep steel awaits the blacksmith. Someone is watching Mine 5. Hani will come in the evening with news. Lyra called him by name for the first time. 400 rats are awaiting orders, and somewhere in the eastern sector, whatever ate rat number 217 is also waiting. Noah fell asleep, and he dreamed of a farm, not the one he'd been building in the basement in Chicago, another one, bigger, deeper, with a ceiling of roots and walls of black basalt, with green sprouts that reached toward the light, which wasn't there, but they grew anyway. Because someone had planted them. Because someone had decided that even down there, it was possible to grow. Day 6. Tunnel 42 collapsed during the night. Noah sensed it through the tablet. The rats in the sector detected a vibration, a dull thud, dust, then silence. He checked it out himself. He walked through Tunnel 15, past Gertrude, turned onto 16, then onto 42. The collapse looked perfect. 3 cubic meters of brick and soil. The vault had collapsed exactly where Noah had calculated it would. Water from the aquifer seeped through the rubble and drained away. No engineer would be able to tell this apart from natural collapse. Noah stood by the collapse. He touched the bricks. They were wet, cold. The calculation had worked with a margin of error of 2 hours. For a first attempt in a foreign world, that was good. He returned to the throne room. Nona was waiting. She said she sensed a change in the water flows upstairs. The third horizon had begun to clear, slowly. In a week, the wells of Lower Ash would yield water free of poison. Noah nodded. A week is a long time. He would continue carrying the water skins. In the morning, he climbed up through Shaft 5. But he didn't head straight ahead to Lyra. First, he walked around the block in a wide arc, taking the long way, across the market square, through the alley behind the laundromat, through the passage between 2 warehouses. He changed his route, a new one every day. That man with the unremarkable face hadn't shown up for 2 days. But Noah didn't let his guard down. The rats at Shaft 5 were on watch around the clock. He reached the Vane's house. He pulled the rag aside. Elliot was standing there, on his feet. He was holding on to the wall, but he was standing. Lyra was sitting on the floor, looking up at her brother. Noah set down the wineskin. Elliot turned his head. He looked at Noah. He said thank you, quietly, hoarsely, but he said it. Noah nodded. Lyra stood up. She walked over to him. She stood close to him. Noah could see she hadn't been sleeping. Her eyes were red, but not from tears, from thinking. She said she'd gone to the well yesterday. She'd drawn some water. She'd taken it to the apothecary on Upper Street. She'd paid her last copper coin to have it tested. The apothecary said the water was poisonous, that it contained heavy metal salts and something else he couldn't identify. The pharmacist said you can't drink it, that it kills you, slowly, for sure. Lyra said that Noah was right, that the well is poisoned, that the whole neighborhood is drinking poison. 20,000 people. Noah was silent. Lyra asked what he was going to do about it. Noah said he was already doing something. Lyra asked what exactly. Noah said it was a long story. Lyra said she had time. Elliot was getting better. For the first time in 3 weeks, she had time. Noah thought for 5 seconds. Then he said he needed help. Upstairs. Eyes, ears, legs. Someone who knew the neighborhood better than he did. Someone who knew how to move without being noticed. Someone who... nothing to lose. Lyra looked at him. Then she said that being a thief since she was 8 was qualification enough. Or did he need a resume? Noah didn't smile. But something in his expression changed, and Lyra noticed it. She said she'd go with him. Not for him. For Elliot. For the water. For the 20,000 people who are drinking poison and don't know it. Noah nodded. He told her to come to Shaft 5 that evening. Alone. Without a tail. Lyra said she doesn't go out with tails. She went back to her brother. Noah left the house. The timer read 2 hours and 40 minutes. He walked through the neighborhood, thinking. Lyra was the first of 4. A scout on the surface. Check. 3 to go. A civil engineer. An informant in the upper light. An informant in the church. He walked past Rachel's blacksmith shop. The door was closed. Smoke was coming from the chimney. The sound of a hammer. Rhea was working. Noah didn't go in. It was too early. He returned to the underground. That evening, Hani arrived, with news. Guard Tor beat up a merchant at the lower market for non-payment. The Church of Light declared a week of penance for the slum dwellers. This meant that priests would go around the neighborhood and write down the names of those who didn't attend prayer services. The names would then end up on eviction lists. Noah made a note of it. Then Hani said something else. She said she'd seen a strange man near Shaft 5, of average height, middle-aged, an unremarkable face. He stood there, watching. Then he left. Noah asked where he'd gone. Hani said he'd headed toward the upper city, toward the church quarter. Noah froze. The church quarter, the Order of the Bright Seal. The man watching Mine 5 was connected to the church. That changed everything. Noah asked Hani if she could follow this man. Hani said she could. She said she'd been following people since she was 12. Noah told her to be careful. Hani said that caution was for those who had something to lose. Noah looked at her. Then he said she had a whistle. Hani fell silent. Then she smiled. For the first time in front of him. She went upstairs. Noah waited for Lyra. She arrived an hour after sunset, alone, without a tail. She descended shaft 5 as if she'd been doing it her whole life. Noah met her in tunnel 3. He led her to chamber 39, not to the throne room. The throne room is a trump card. You don't show your trump cards on a first date. Lyra walked in silence. She looked around. Rats scurried along the walls. Slugs glowed a dim green on the ceiling. Cobwebs shimmered in the darkness. Lyra wasn't afraid. Or maybe she was, but she didn't show it. Chamber 39. The spring. The filter. The reservoir. Lyra stopped. She looked around. She touched the wall. She tasted the water from the spring, then from the filter. She looked at the structure made of stone, sand, and coal. She said it looked like the work of a master craftsman. Noah said it was the work of a plumber. Lyra didn't understand the word. Noah said it was a person who fixes pipes. Lyra raised an eyebrow. Then she said that a person who fixes pipes usually doesn't live in an underground chamber with 400 rats. Noah said he had an unusual career. He began to explain. Not everything, just part of it. He said he found this place when he fell into a manhole, that there's a system here, an ancient one that allows him to control the creatures of the underworld, that he wants to use it to protect the neighborhood. He didn't mention the throne. He didn't mention the 12th dynasty. He didn't mention Nona. Lyra listened. Then she asked one question. She asked why he wanted to do this. Noah thought for a moment. Then he told the truth. He said that once he had died, and the last thing on his mind was that he hadn't had time to feed those who were starving, that this was his second chance. Lyra looked at him for a long time. Then she said that he was either crazy or the most dangerous man in this city. She said that in either case, she was with him. Noah began to lay out the task. He needed information, accurate information, about every house marked for demolition, about every guard who would take part in the eviction, about every noble who had invested money in the construction of the avenue, about the patrol routes, about the shift schedules at the gates, about who in the upper city supports the decree and who opposes it. Lyra said she had contacts, a network of thieves, boys, pickpockets, girls, maids in noble households. Information flows downward like water. You just need to know where to put the bucket. Noah said he'd pay for every report with clean water, a wineskin for the information. Lyra said that water in this city is more expensive than silver, that he'd just bought himself the best spy network in Valencure for 3 leather sacks a day. Noah said that this was exactly the kind of economy he liked. Lyra climbed up the mine shaft. Noah returned to the throne room. Nona was waiting. She asked if the thief could be trusted. Day 7. Noah woke up and checked the register first thing. Crown points, 71. Subjects, 399 rats, 60 slugs, 12 spiders, 3 flocks of bats, 1 deep salamander. None reached 50 loyalty points. Gertrude was the closest at 17. Rat number 1 at 22. Rat number 7 at 20. Slow going. Loyalty grew through interaction. The more often he interacted with a subject, the higher their loyalty. But interacting with 400 rats one by one isn't governance. It's madness. Noah thought about it. Then he made a decision. He appointed commanders. Rat number 1 became the leader of the northern sector, 80 rats under her. Rat number 7 became the leader of the southern sector, 80 rats. Number 23 was in charge of the eastern sector. Number 44 was in charge of the western sector. Number 91 was in charge of the central sector, 5 commanders. 5 sectors, -5 crown points for the reorganization. Now he would give an order to a single commander, who would then pass it down the chain of command. The number of points spent per order was cut in half. Management became more streamlined. Noah thought that in Chicago, his boss managed 80 employees the same way, 5 foremen, each responsible for their own zone. The principle was the same. The scale was different. He emerged to the surface through Shaft 5. Today's route took him through the market square and then down the alley along the wall of the old grain silo. He'd left the wineskin at Lyra's. Elliot was walking, slowly, leaning on the wall, but he was walking. His face was rosier. His eyes were lively. Lyra wasn't home yet. She'd gone on a mission, but he headed for the blacksmith shop, Burnt Willow Street, the house on the corner. Smoke was rising from the chimney, the sound of a hammer. He pushed open the door. A wave of heat hit his face. The blacksmith's shop was small, 3 by 4 meters, a bellows against the wall, an anvil in the center, tools on the walls, hammers, pliers, chisels. Everything was in order. Everything was in its place. Rachel Donovan was standing at the anvil, 31 years old, sturdy, broad shoulders, hands with burn marks, short dark hair tied back with a leather strap, a thick leather apron. She was forging a lock, fine work, precise. The hammer moved smoothly. Rachel looked up. She saw Noah. He saw that she recognized him. Rotten Noah, the Ratcatcher. A dead Ratcatcher, if the rumors were to be believed. Because after Tor smashed his face into the rocks, no one had seen him. 6 days. In the slums, 6 days without word usually meant death. Rachel looked at him. Then she said he didn't look too bad for a dead man. Noah said he was a quick healer. Rachel went back to the lock. Tap, tap, tap. Noah stood there waiting. He wasn't in a hurry. Rachel finished the lock. She set it on the shelf. She turned to him. She asked what he needed. Noah said he needed a blacksmith. Rachel said she charges 3 copper coins for the lock and 5 for the knife. Noah said he didn't need a lock or a knife. What he needed was a blacksmith who could work with metal that isn't found on the surface. Rachel froze. Then she slowly wiped her hands with a rag. She asked what he was talking about. Noah pulled a piece out from under his cloak, a small one, a scrap of deep steel the size of a finger. He'd broken it off a strip before leaving. He placed it on the anvil. Rachel looked at it. Then she picked it up. She turned it over in her hands. She scraped it with her fingernail. She held it up to the light. Black metal with a blue sheen. She knew what it was. Noah could tell by the look on her face. She said it was impossible. That deep steel was a legend. That the last piece had been destroyed 300 years ago. Noah said that legends sometimes lie. Rachel put the scrap back on the anvil. She looked at Noah. A long, lingering look. Then she asked where he'd gotten it. Noah said, underground. Rachel said there were many things buried underground. That her late husband had also spoken of the underground. That he'd told her things she'd begged him to keep quiet about. That he'd been killed afterward. And for 5 years, she'd thought it was because of his betrayal. Noah heard the change in her voice. Heaviness. Bitterness. 5 years of hatred toward a dead man. He said he knew about her husband. Rachel tensed up. Noah said her husband wasn't a traitor. Rachel remained silent. Noah said he could prove it, that there were archives beneath this city, documents, reports, that rats were better at finding paper than people, that he would find her husband's report, the real one, the one written by the guard who refused to beat the beggars, the one that got him killed. Rachel stood motionless, a hammer in her hand. Her knuckles were white from the grip. She said that if he was lying, she'd break both his arms. Noah said he wasn't lying. Rachel told him to get out. She said he could come back when he brought proof, not before. Noah took the scrap of steel. He left. The timer read 3 hours and 20 minutes. He went down to the dungeon. Rachel hadn't agreed yet, but she hadn't refused outright either. She was waiting for proof. That meant he had to find the report. Noah sat down in the throne room. He thought. The guard's report. A document. A piece of paper. In this world, papers were kept in 2 places. The city archives in City Hall, and the church archives in the Order of the Bright Seal. The guard submitted his report to the commander. The commander forwarded it to City Hall. A copy went to the church because the church controlled everything related to order and morality. City Hall was on the surface. Noah couldn't get in there. Not now. The church archive was also on the surface, but the church stood on a hill, and beneath the hill were cellars. Noah looked at the map. Tunnel 23 ran beneath the hill of the Church of Light, at a depth of 20 meters. There were 8 meters of rock between the tunnel and the church's cellars. Rats couldn't gnaw through it. But rats don't need to gnaw through rock. Rats need a crack. Noah sent 10 rats from the northern sector on a reconnaissance mission to find any opening, a crack, a burrow, an old drain, anything that connects Tunnel 23 to the church's basements. -2 points. The rats left. Noah waited. That evening, Hani arrived. She looked agitated. She said she'd been following that man, the stranger with the unremarkable face. He'd gone to the church quarter, to the building of the Order of the Bright Seal. He'd entered through a side door. He came out an hour later, with papers. Then he walked back toward Lower Ash. He stopped at Shaft 5, stood there for a while, jotted something down in a notebook, left. Noah asked what he looked like. Hani described him. Average height, around 40, gray clothes, boots without heels, clean hands, not a laborer, not a noble, something in between. A ring on his left hand, silver, with a symbol. Hani couldn't make out the symbol. Noah asked Nona. He described the ring, silver, with a symbol, on his left hand. Nona turned even paler, which for a translucent ghost was quite an impressive feat. She said that a silver ring with a symbol on the left hand was the insignia of a junior investigator of the Order of the Bright Seal, not an inquisitor. An investigator is lower in rank. He gathers information, records it, reports it. The inquisitor comes later, when there's enough information. Noah sat on the throne and thought. The Order's investigator is monitoring Mine 5. He's already noticed that someone is emerging from underground. He's already recorded it. Soon he'll report it. After the report, the Inquisitor will arrive. Noah asked Nona how much time usually passes between the investigator's surveillance and the Inquisitor's arrival. Nona said that during the previous dynasty, it took 3 weeks. But 300 years have passed. She doesn't know how the Order operates now. Noah did the math. The investigator has been monitoring the mine for at least 2 days. If he reports tomorrow, and if the Order operates at the same pace, the Inquisitor will show up in 2 or 3 weeks, on the 18th or 20th day. That's before the decree. 2 threats, 2 timelines. The decree in 33 days. The Inquisitor in 12 to 14 days. Noah looked at Nona. He said he needed an informant within the church. Nona said it was impossible, that the Order of the Light Seal was a closed organization, that outsiders weren't allowed in. Noah said he didn't need an outsider. He needed one of his own. Someone inside the Order who hated the Order. Someone in pain. Nona was silent. Then she said one name, Eden Hollow, a novice, 26 years old, 9 years in the Order. Her younger sister had died in a purification ritual 4 years ago. That was the official story. A sacred sacrifice in the name of the light. Eden didn't believe it. Eden had kept silent for 4 years, but she didn't believe it. Noah asked how to find her. Nona said that novices leave the Order once a week, on the Day of Mercy. They hand out bread to the poor. Tomorrow is the Day of Mercy. Noah nodded. Tomorrow. The rats from the northern sector returned at night. The result: Tunnel 23 under the hill by the church, 20 meters deep, 8 meters of rock between the tunnel and the basements. No cracks, no burrows, no drains, dead end. But one rat found something off to the side. 100 meters west of Tunnel 23 ran an old, abandoned drainage pipe, narrow, 30 centimeters in diameter, clogged with dirt, but not completely. The rat squeezed through. The drainage pipe ran upward at an angle, 12 meters. It emerged into the wall of a basement, the church's basement. The rat saw shelves, boxes, paper, an archive. Noah smiled. For the first time in 2 days, he sent 5 rats into the drain. The mission: to find the guard's report. Last name: Donovan. 5 years ago. Rats can't read, but rats can search by scent. Paper from 5 years ago smells different from fresh paper. Ink fades and changes its scent. Noah gave the rats a sample, a piece of fabric from Rachel's cloak that he had discreetly picked up near the blacksmith shop. The scent of the owner, family, husband. If the report had been in the Donovans' house before it ended up in the archives, it might still bear a trace of that scent. Maybe. A slim chance. But an engineer works with what he has. -3 crown points. The rats scurried into the drain. Noah lay down on the floor. 33 days until the decree. 12 until the Inquisitor. Tomorrow he'll meet Eden Hollow. Tomorrow, Lyra will bring the first report. Tomorrow, the rats might find the report, or they might not. And he'll come up with another way. Because an engineer doesn't stop when Plan A doesn't work. An engineer moves on to Plan B, and then to C, and so on until the end of the alphabet. And when the alphabet runs out, the engineer starts with another one. Day 8, the Day of Mercy. Noah climbed to the surface through shaft 5. The route went through the grain silo, then through the back wall of the laundry room, then along the canal to the bridge. The bridge separated Lower Ash and the Upper City. Beggars stood on the bridge every day of mercy, waiting for bread. Novices of the Order of the Bright Seal came in white hoods carrying baskets. They handed out bread, silently, with downcast eyes. A ritual. Noah joined the line. Among the beggars, he looked like one of them, dirty, skinny. The Ratcatcher's body remembered this line. It had stood here hundreds of times. The novices walked across the bridge. 7 white figures. Their hoods hid their faces. Noah counted. 1st, 2nd, 3rd. He was looking for Eden Hollow. Nona had described her. Short, slender arms, a monocle on her nose. On the left. A monocle was unusual for a novice. The church believed that eyes were a gift of light, and to aid them with glass was an insult. But Eden wore a monocle. 4 years. Since she lost her sister. They said her eyesight had worsened from crying. The 5th novice. Short, slender hands. A monocle over her left eye. The lens was round. The frame was copper, worn smooth from daily use. Eden Hollow. Noah approached. He reached out for the bread. Eden placed a piece in his palm. She didn't look up. Noah said quietly that he needed to talk. Eden froze. Her hand hovered over the basket. Noah said he knew about her sister, that he knew the purification ritual wasn't sacred, that it was a cover-up. Iden's hand trembled. The bread fell out of the basket. She looked up. Behind the monocle, her eye was gray, attentive, frightened. She whispered for him to be quiet, that they could hear her here. Noah said he would wait by the 3rd tree beyond the bridge in an hour, that if she didn't come, he would understand, and leave, and never bother her again. Iden didn't answer. The next beggar approached for bread. Noah left. He sat down by the 3rd tree beyond the bridge. He waited. An hour is a long time in that Eimer. The timer read 2 hours and 10 minutes. Noah ate the bread. The bread was dry and tasteless, church bread. She arrived 40 minutes later, without the white hood, in a gray novice's dress. The monocle was still in place. Her hands clasped in front of her. She sat down next to him. Not right next to him. 2 meters away, a distance. Noah didn't move. Iden asked how he knew about her sister. Noah said he had access to places where things were kept that the Order would like to hide. Eden asked what kind of places. Noah said they were underground. Iden turned pale. Noah could see that the word underground meant more to her than it did to an ordinary person. The church taught that what lay below was filth, darkness, evil, everything unclean. Eden had been raised on this. 9 years in the Order, and now a beggar Ratcatcher was telling her that the truth about her sister lay right under her feet. She asked what he wanted. Noah said he needed information about what the Order does, when the Inquisitors arrive, what decisions they make, what they write in their reports. Eden said that was treason against the Order. Noah said the Order had killed her sister and called it a holy act. Iden was silent. Her monocle glinted in the sun. Then she said she wasn't promising anything, that she'd think about it. Noah said that thinking was good, that he'd be back in 3 days. Same bridge, same tree. Iden stood up. She walked away. She didn't look back. Noah sat under the tree. The timer read 3 hours and 40 minutes. He walked back to Lower Ash. On the way, he stopped by Lyra's place. Lyra was waiting for him, the first report. She had worked quickly. Overnight, she'd compiled a list through her network, 14 houses marked for demolition as a top priority, the names of 8 guards who would oversee the eviction, 3 patrol routes through the neighborhood, and something else. Lyra said she'd overheard a conversation between 2 servants from the Morin household. They were saying that young Master Julian was nervous, that the tunnel had collapsed, that the barrels were full and there's nowhere to drain them, that the old Duke Caspian is angry. Noah listened. So the collapse in Tunnel 42 has already been discovered. Morin will start clearing it out. It'll be cleared in a week. By then, Noah must have prepared a second collapse, or something even better. Lyra handed him a bundle, a rag. Inside were clothes, a doublet, dark blue, worn but presentable, pants, a shirt, boots. Lyra said she'd stolen them from a merchant at the upper market. She said the king couldn't go around in rags. Noah looked at her. She didn't know he was the king. She'd said it as a joke, but he sensed there was weight to the joke. The tablet flashed. Lyra, favor 20. Noah took the doublet. He said thank you. Lyra turned away. Noah could see that the tips of her ears had turned red. He returned to the dungeon. Shaft 5, Tunnel 3, Tunnel 15, the throne room. Nona was waiting. Noah placed the doublet next to the strip of deep steel in the cup. 3 objects: the cup, the steel, the doublet, the past, future, present. Nona looked at the clothes, then at Noah. She asked who had given them to him. Noah said it was Lyra. Nona was silent for a moment. Then she said that the first queen of the 12th dynasty also had red hair. Noah didn't respond to that. Instead, he asked about the rats in the church basement. Nona said the rats had returned. 5 rats, 4 empty ones, 1 with a piece of paper. Noah took the paper, a scroll, small, yellowed. 5 years, the seal of the city guard, text. Noah had learned to read the language of this world from the Ratcatcher's body's memory. He read slowly, syllable by syllable. A report. Guard Marcus Donovan, submitted to Captain Vern. Subject: refusal to carry out an order to use force against the residents of the Lower Ashes district. Marcus Donovan wrote that the order to beat unarmed people contradicted a guard's oath. That he refused. That he requested an investigation. At the bottom, a postscript in different handwriting. Captain Vern's order. Guard Donovan has been suspended, sent for interrogation, charged with sympathizing with enemies of the crown. Marcus Donovan was no traitor. He was the only decent person in the city guard, and he was killed for it. Noah rolled up the report, put it in his pocket. Tomorrow he'll take it to Rachel. Tomorrow she'll read it. Tomorrow her world would be turned upside down. Noah lay down on the floor. He closed his eyes. He thought about how justice in this world was worth less than a rat's pelt, that a man had been killed for refusing to beat others, that his wife had hated him for 5 years because of the lie the murderers had concocted, 32 days until the decree. Noah drifted off to sleep, hearing Nona quietly sipping water from her cup, in small sips, in the silence, in the darkness. 300 years of loneliness, and now a whole cup. Day 9. Noah took the report and went up to the surface. Shaft 5. The route through the canal and then along the wall of the grain silo. Rachel's blacksmith shop. Smoke from the chimney. No hammering. Silence. He pushed the door open. Rachel was sitting on a stool by the extinguished forge. Her hands were on her knees. Her eyes were fixed on the floor. She wasn't working. Noah could see she was waiting. Not for him. Not for anything. She was just sitting there, waiting for the day to end. That's what a person looks like after living on autopilot for 5 years. Noah walked in. He took a scroll out of his pocket. He placed it on the anvil. Rachel looked at it, at the scroll, at the seal, at Noah. She took the scroll, unrolled it, read it slowly. Noah stood by the door and said nothing. She finished reading. She placed the scroll on the anvil, carefully, with both hands, as if she were afraid of tearing it. Then she stood up, walked over to the wall. She pressed her forehead against the stone. She stood there for a minute, 2, 3. Noah didn't move. Rachel punched the wall with her fist, once, quietly, not out of anger, out of something else. She turned around. Her eyes were dry, red but dry. She asked where he'd found it. Noah said in the archives beneath the Church of Light. Rachel asked how he'd gotten in there. Noah said he had rats that would crawl anywhere. Rachel looked at him. Noah could see her piecing her inner world back together. 5 years of hatred for her husband. 5 years of shame. 5 years of a ring on a string that burned her neck. And now, the scroll on the anvil, and it was all a lie. Her husband wasn't a traitor. Her husband was a hero. Her husband was the only one who said no, and he was killed for it. Rachel took the string off her neck. Marcus's ring, simple, copper, engraved on the inside. She looked at it. Then she slipped it onto her finger. For the first time in 5 years, Noah was silent. Rachel said she was in his debt. Noah said he didn't want debtors. He wanted a blacksmith. Rachel almost smiled. Then she asked what kind of metal he had been showing her. Noah said he'd show her if she was willing to go downstairs. Rachel looked at the floor of the smithy, at the spot beneath the anvil, and Noah realized she knew. Not about the throne, not about the dynasty, but she knew there was something beneath her smithy. Marcus knew. Marcus had told her. She'd asked him to be quiet, but she'd heard, and she'd remembered. Rachel said that Marcus had spoken of a mine, beneath the floor, beneath the anvil, sealed off. Noah nodded. He said the seal could be broken. Rachel asked what was down there. Noah said that down there was his kingdom. Rachel was silent for 10 seconds. Then she said that for a rat catcher, he had big ambitions. Noah said he wasn't a rat catcher anymore. Rachel asked who he was then. Noah said he was an engineer. Rachel didn't understand the word. Noah said he was a person who builds things that didn't exist before. Rachel said that sounded like a blacksmith. Noah said that, in a way, yes. Rachel said she wasn't going underground today, that she needed a day, that Marcus's report had turned everything she'd known over the past 5 years upside down, and she needed time to pull herself together. Noah said he understood. He said he'd be back tomorrow. Rachel nodded. Noah left. The timer read 2 hours and 50 minutes. He walked around the block, thinking. Rachel was almost on the team. 1 more day, the second of 4. Blacksmith engineer, almost there. Halfway to shaft 5, someone called out to him. A rough voice, familiar. Noah turned around. Gavin Tor, a sergeant in the city guard. That same boot, broad-shouldered, red face, small eyes. Chainmail under a leather jacket, a sword at his belt, 2 guards behind him. Tor stood 10 meters away. He looked at Noah. Then his expression changed. He recognized him. Noah saw it, the slow realization, as if Tor were looking at a ghost. Because 6 days ago, he'd personally kicked Noah into a manhole from a height of 10 meters. And here Noah was, standing, alive, unharmed, on his feet. Tor said he could see rotten Noah. He looked good for a corpse. Noah didn't answer. Tor took a step forward. He said that Julian Morin would be glad to know the job wasn't finished, that maybe it was time to finish it right now. Noah did the math. 3 people, armed. He was alone, unarmed. The timer read 3 hours and 12 minutes. 500 meters to the mine. Run, fast, through the courtyard, through the gap between the buildings, into the alley, toward the manhole. Noah ran. Not heroically, not gracefully. He just ran. The way a man runs when he knows that a fight with 3 armed men isn't a battle. It's suicide. Tor shouted something and ran after him. 2 guards were right behind him. Noah dived into the courtyard, jumped over a trash bin, slipped through the gap between the buildings, squeezed through sideways. The guards were too wide. They got stuck. Tor was cursing. Noah ran out into the alley. Shaft 5 was ahead. Rat number 44 was sitting on the edge of the manhole, watching him. Noah ran up to it. He jumped. The manhole. Darkness. Steps. Down. 20 meters in 40 seconds. Up above, Tor ran up to the manhole. He looked down. darkness. Tor didn't climb in. He was a sadist, but not a fool. The sewer system isn't a guard's territory. It's death. Tor spat into the manhole. Noah heard the spit splash against a rock 2 meters away from him. Tor was gone. Noah sat on the steps, breathing. His body was shaking. Not from fear, it was the adrenaline. 24 years of beatings were etched into this body's memory. His muscles remembered fear even when his mind did not. Noah waited 5 minutes. Then he went down into the tunnel. The rats were waiting. All of them. The entire southern sector. 80 rats stood along the walls and stared at him. They could feel his heartbeat through the vibrations of the floor. They knew he had been running. Noah walked toward the throne room, lost in thought. Tor had seen him. Tor knows he's alive. Tor will tell Julian Moran. Julian will find out that the man he ordered killed is walking the surface. Julian will start searching. Noah quickened his pace. In the throne room, he sat down on the throne. Roots wrapped around his wrists. The report unfolded. Crown points, 59. Not enough. He's spending more than he's earning. He needs to raise his subjects' loyalty to 50. Each subject at 50 is a +1 point per day, forever. Right now, rat number 1 has the highest loyalty, 22. 50 is still a long way off. Noah wondered how to speed things up. Loyalty grows through interaction, through care, through working together. He couldn't pet all 400 rats one by one, but he could give them something they'd never had before: food. The rats had been feeding on scraps, leftovers, and carrion their whole lives. Noah could organize regular meals for them, made from filtered water and organic matter that had accumulated in the tunnels. It wasn't a luxury, but it offered stability. For a rat, Schick, the stability of food is the highest value. He gave the order. Every evening in Chamber 39, a gathering, water and organic food for all subjects. -5 points for organizing a regular ritual, but it's an investment. In a week, loyalty will skyrocket. In 2 weeks, the first subjects will reach 50, and the points will start coming back, with interest. Noah leaned back on his throne. Nona stood beside him. She had heard everything, about Torah, about the chase, about how he'd been spotted. She said that a lord shouldn't run from the guards. Noah said that a lord who doesn't run from 3 armed men is a dead lord. Nona was silent for a moment. Then she said he was the first of the 13 kings who knew how to run. Noah wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not. He decided it was. 31 days until the decree. Tor had seen him. Morin would find out soon. The Inquisitor was on his way. Rachel was thinking. Eden was silent. Lyra was working. Hani was watching. And somewhere in the eastern sector, in Tunnel 9, whatever had eaten Rat 217 was thinking too. Noah closed his eyes. He was tired. A Ratcatcher's body wasn't used to this kind of strain. 18 scars ached. His knees ached. His back shot with pain. But his eyes burned. They burned because for the first time in 2 lifetimes, he wasn't building pipes, filters, or farms. He was building a team. And the team was taking shape. Day 10. Rachel came on her own. Noah wasn't expecting her. He was sitting in Chamber 39, checking the filter when he heard footsteps. Heavy, confident, boots on the rock. Rachel was standing at the entrance to the chamber. She'd come down through shaft 5. On her own. She'd found her way using the slime marks on the walls, glowing streaks, green. Noah had left them for himself. Rachel used them as a map. She was smarter than she looked, or braver, or both. Noah stood up. Rachel surveyed the chamber, the source, the filter, the reservoir, the slime-filled trough. She touched the walls. She checked the water. Noah waited. Rachel said she'd been thinking all night. That Marcus's report was genuine, that she'd checked the seal, the handwriting, and the ink. Everything matched. That her husband hadn't betrayed them, that he'd been killed because he was better than the rest. Then she paused. Then she said that 5 years of hatred for her dead husband was heavier than an anvil, that she didn't know how to live with it. But she knew she wanted to respond, not to seek revenge, to respond. There's a difference. Noah nodded. He said he needed a blacksmith for metal that wasn't available up above. He said he'd show her the workshop if she was ready. Rachel said she'd been a blacksmith for 31 years, that she was ready for any forge. Noah led her to the throne room, down tunnel 15, past Gertrude. Rachel saw the salamander and stopped. 3.5 meters tall, white skin, yellow eyes. Rachel stood there and stared. Gertrude stood up, slowly. She looked at Rachel, then at Noah. Noah said that this was Gertrude and that she was safe. Rachel said she had a different definition of safety, but she walked past. Gertrude lowered her head back into the water. The throne room. Rachel stopped at the threshold. Noah watched as she saw the hall for the first time. Basalt. A vaulted ceiling stretching into the darkness. 12 skeletons wearing crowns. A throne made of bones. Roots. Alive. Pulsating. And a map on the floor. Huge. Detailed. The entire city from below. Rachel stood there in silence. Then she said her husband had been right, that there was something beneath the city, that Marcus had told her but she hadn't listened. Noah gave her a minute. Then he led her to a niche, a strip of deep-sea steel, 1 meter long, a palm's width, 2 centimeters thick, black with a blue sheen. Rachel picked up the strip, held it, weighed it in her hands, ran her finger along the surface. Noah saw her expression change, like a professional recognizing a material not with her eyes but with her hands. Rachel said the metal was denser than steel, heavier, and warm. Ordinary metal is cold. This one is warm. She asked what the melting point was. Noah repeated what Nona had said. 400 degrees higher than ordinary steel. Rachel whistled. She said her furnace wouldn't cut it. A maximum of 1,200 degrees. She needed 1,600. Noah said there was heat underground, natural, geothermal. Nona had said that on the lower levels, the temperature of the rock reached the required levels. We just needed to find the spot. Rachel said that she wouldn't go any deeper. Not yet. She said that for starters, she needed a workshop. Here, on this level. An anvil, tools, ventilation, and light. Noah said she already had an anvil upstairs. Rachel said she needed a second one. Here, because lugging an anvil through the tunnels isn't a job, it's a curse. Noah thought about it. An anvil. Heavy. Steel. It would have to be either brought down from above or found down here. Bringing it down would draw attention. Finding it means searching. He opened the chart. Spiders. Sensor networks. They sense metal by vibration. Steel resonates differently than stone. Noah sent all 12 spiders to search for metal objects within a 500-meter radius of the throne room, -4 points. Rachel sat on the floor and studied the map. She found her forge, point 8, a vertical shaft, sealed. She placed her finger on the point and Noah saw her lips twitch. Marcus knew. Marcus had walked across this floor. Maybe he'd stood in this hall. Maybe he'd seen this throne and kept silent and protected the secret and died for it. Rachel took her hand away. She stood up. She said she needed to get back upstairs before dark, that she had an order for 3 locks, that money doesn't grow on trees, even if you're sitting right next to a magical throne. Noah walked her to shaft 5. On the way, Rachel asked what those roots were. Noah said they were the throne's roots. Rachel asked what kind of throne. Noah said it was a long story. Rachel said she loved long stories. That Marcus used to tell her stories before bed, that she'd listen and fall asleep, that afterward she'd hate herself for falling asleep instead of listening. Noah was silent. Rachel climbed up the shaft. Halfway up, she stopped. She turned around. She said he was a strange guy, but a guy, not trash, not a creature, a guy. She said it with warmth, not maternal, not friendly, different. The kind of warmth that comes when, for the first time in 5 years, a person sees in another someone worth holding on to. Tabel blinked. Rachel. Favorability, 10. Noah returned to the throne room. Nona was waiting. She'd seen Rachel. She'd heard the conversation. Noah asked what she thought. Nona said that the grasshopper smelled of iron and grief, and that it was a good smell. Noah didn't ask why it was good. The spiders returned by evening. Result? Metal. 3 dots. First, tunnel 19, 200 meters from the throne room. An iron grate, old, embedded in the wall, useless. Second, chamber 12, 300 meters, flooded, something metallic under the water, large, cannot be identified without diving. Third, tunnel 7, 150 meters, between the wall and the floor, buried under rocks. Clear vibration. The object is large, flat, heavy. Noah headed for tunnel 7. He was accompanied by rats and 2 slugs for lighting. The slugs on the ceiling gave off a faint green light, enough to see. Tunnel 7 is old. The masonry is crumbling in places. There are rocks and dirt on the floor. In one spot, the dirt was pushed up, as if something were pressing down from below. Noah dug with his hands. 20 minutes later, he found it. A slab, made of iron, thick, square, 100 by 100 centimeters, 5 centimeters thick, weighing 300 kilograms. Not an anvil, but a plate that could be used as a work surface, or that would itself become a work surface if placed on a pedestal. Noah tried to move it. No use. He couldn't lift it with his hands. He needed Gertrude. He returned to the 15th. Gertrude was lying in the water. Noah crouched down. He stroked her head. Her skin was slippery, cold. Gertrude opened her eyes, yellow. Loyalty 19. Noah told her he needed help. He said there was a heavy object in tunnel 7. Gertrude slowly got to her feet, 3.5 meters. She barely fit in the tunnel, but she moved. Noah led the way. Gertrude followed him. Wet footsteps, heavy. In tunnel 7, Gertrude crawled up to the slab. She braced herself against it with her head. She pushed. The slab shifted, the screech of metal against stone. Gertrude pushed. Noah guided her. 40 minutes later, the slab stood in the chamber next to the throne room, resting on 2 stone blocks, waist high, a flat surface, not an anvil, but a blacksmith's workbench. Gertrude lay down against the wall. She was tired. Noah sat down beside her. He stroked her. Gertrude closed her eyes. Loyalty 22. Noah made a note in the log. Gertrude. Specialization. Heavy cargo transport. He returned to the throne room. He sat down. He did the math. Crown points, 48, critically low. Feeding the subjects would begin tomorrow. In a week, loyalty would rise. The points would start to replenish. But a week is a long time. They'd have to live frugally this week. 30 days until the decree. About 10 until the Inquisitor. Rachel is on the team. The anvil is ready. Eden is silent. Tor knows that Noah is alive. Morin will find out soon. Nona stood by the cup. She was drinking water. Noah looked at her and thought that of all the things he had built in 10 days, the cup was the first, and the most important. Because the cup didn't save lives, didn't filter water, and didn't block tunnels. The cup simply gave a lonely being the chance to drink. And that's more important than anything else. Noah closed his eyes. 30 days, 20,000 people, 48 points. 4 allies if you count Hani, 5 if you count Nona, 6 if you count Gertrude, and him. An engineer from Chicago on a throne of bones. He fell asleep, and he didn't dream a thing. For the first time in 10 days, his body had finally given in and fallen into a deep sleep, and the throne's roots pulsed beneath him, carrying its warmth downward, deep down, to where something vast and ancient sensed the new king and waited. Day 12. Noah sat in the throne room and looked at the board. The feeding program was working. 2 days of regular food and water distribution. Rat number 1, loyalty 31. Rat number 7, loyalty 28. Gertrude, 25. Slowly but steadily. Crown points, 52. Slightly better. 2 rats from the southern sector reached loyalty 30 overnight. Progress. Hani arrived in the morning. She looked frightened for the first time. Hani Pak, who had lived on rooftops for 4 years and stolen apples from the guards, had never looked frightened. Now she did. She said that the order's interrogator had disappeared. She'd been following him for 3 days. His route, mine 5, the church quarter, records. Then he vanished. He didn't show up at the mine yesterday. He didn't show up today. Hani followed him to the order's building. He went in. He didn't come out. Noah froze. The investigator had turned in his report. That meant the next move was up to the Order, the Inquisitor. He asked Nona when to expect him. Nona said that the interrogator finishing his work was the signal. The Inquisitor would arrive in 5 to 7 days, the 17th or 19th. Noah wrote it on the wall. 17, 19. He circled it. He underlined it. He went up to the surface. Mine 5. The route through the market's back alleys. The third tree past the bridge. Eden was supposed to come today. Their second meeting. 3 days ago, he told her to wait. She came. He waited 20 minutes. She appeared from around the corner. A gray dress, a monocle, her hands in front of her. But something had changed. She was walking faster. And her hands weren't clenched. They were relaxed. She sat down next to him. Closer than last time, 1 meter instead of 2. She said she'd checked, that she'd found a record of the purification ritual in the church archives, a record they hadn't shown her for 9 years, a record in which her sister's name appeared not on the list of holy victims, but on the list of supplies. Supplies. Her sister had been designated as a supply, as material, for alchemical experiments, funded by the House of Morin. Eden's voice was steady, too steady. Noah knew that voice, the voice of a person who had already gone through rage and emerged on the other side, where there was cold. Eden said she was with him, that she didn't need proof from the dungeon, she'd found her own, that she needed only one thing, for the Order to answer. Noah said the Order would answer, but first, he needed information. Eden nodded. She began to speak, and she spoke for 20 minutes. Noah listened and memorized everything. The Order of the Light Seal, its structure. The head of the Order is Archbishop Walter. Under him are 3 inquisitors. Under them are 12 investigators. Under them are novices, both male and female. The inquisitor who will go down is named Brother Castiel, 42 years old, 20 years in the Order, specializes in the eradication of impurity. He burned 3 villages for heresy. He blinded a mage in the Northern March. He personally tortured 17 people, and all 17 confessed. Because after Castiel, it's impossible not to confess. Noah listened. Castiel, the 17th or 19th day, 5 to 7 days. Eden said one more thing. She said that the Order knows about the 12th dynasty, that in the secret archive, which she had seen once through a half-open door, there is a section sealed with 3 locks. The section is called the Protocol of the Lower Throne. Eden didn't know what was inside, but she knew that the locks could be opened with a single key. Archbishop Walter wears the key around his neck. Noah remembered. The Protocol of the Lower Throne. 3 locks. 1 key. He thanked Eden. Eden stood up. Before leaving, she paused. She took off her hood, for the first time in front of him. Her hair was dark, short, cut unevenly. Her face was delicate, pale, a scar on her temple, small, old. She said the hood was a shield, that she hadn't taken it off around strangers for 9 years, that he was the first. The roster flashed. Eden. Favorability 20. Noah returned to the dungeon. 3 allies on the surface. Lyra, Rachel, Eden. The 4th is Hani. The 5th is Nona. 1 is missing. An informant in high society. Caroline Astor. He hasn't reached her yet, but that's for later. Right now, the Inquisitor is more important. Day 13. Noah was planning. He sat in the throne room in front of a map. Castiel will go down, through the hatch, through the tunnels. He'll be looking for traces of corruption. Nona, the throne, the subjects. Noah couldn't stop him from going in. There are too many hatches, but he could steer him. The Inquisitor will take the most obvious route, through the main collector. Tunnel 1, wide, well lit, with a staircase. Noah knew that the guards used only this entrance. The Inquisitor would go this way too. So we need to intercept him in Tunnel 1. Not in person, engineering-wise. Noah studied the map. Tunnel 1 ran under King Street, the main drainage artery, 3 meters in diameter, solid masonry. The vault reinforced with arches. But at one point, where tunnels 1 and 8 met, there was an old fork. The ceiling there rested on 4 columns, brick columns. The masonry was set in mortar. Noah examined the columns. 2 were in good condition. 2 had cracks. If he weakened the 2 intact columns by 10%, the vault wouldn't collapse. But if you add vibration, if you add water, if you add soil pressure from above, then the vault would collapse, precisely, neatly. 3 cubic meters of brick and earth. Enough to block the passage, enough to bury 1 person. Noah stood by the column and thought, this would be murder. Not the collapse of Tunnel 42, where no one was there. A living person. Inquisitor Castiel, a man who burned 3 villages, blinded a mage, and tortured 17 people. But still a man. Noah remembered how, in Chicago, he once found the body of a homeless man in a storm drain. An old man, frozen to death. No one was looking for him. No one noticed. The world kills quietly, every day. And those who kill without raising a hand sleep peacefully. Castiel sleeps peacefully. Noah won't. But Noah will do it. Because if Castiel reaches the throne, it will all be over. Not for Noah, for the 20,000 people up there. He began his work. Rats gnawed at the mortar. Slugs dissolved the joints. Slowly, precisely. -6 crown points. The columns have weakened. Noah installed spiderweb sensors at the entrance to Tunnel 1. The spiders spun their webs. Any creature heavier than 10 kilograms will break a thread, and Noah will know. He returned to the throne room. The trap is set. Wait. Day 15. The feeding yielded results. Rat number 1, loyalty 38. Rat number 7, loyalty 35. Gertrude, 30. 10 rats have passed the 30 mark. Crown points, 58. They're growing. Slowly, but they're rising. Lyra brought reports every evening. Morin is clearing Tunnel 42. Slowly. They have 4 workers. Noah planned a second collapse, but not yet, after the Inquisitor. Rachel went down every day. She worked on an iron plate. She sharpened it. She smoothed it. She turned a piece of metal into a work surface. She brought tools from the forge. Hammers, pliers, files, small items, everything that would fit in a bag. She worked in silence, focused. Sometimes she would stop and touch Marcus's ring on her finger. Day 17. Rachel finished the work surface. Noah led her into the throne room. He showed her a strip of deep-drawn steel. Rachel took it. She examined it. She said that forging required heat, which she didn't have. But for rough shaping, a file and patience would suffice. She could remove the burrs, smooth the edge, shape it. Not a blade, but the blank for a blade. Noah said, "All right." Rachel sat down at the anvil and began to work. A file against deep steel. The sound was thin, high-pitched, like a bell. Nona listened from the corner of the hall. Rachel worked for 3 hours. Then she stopped. She looked at Noah. She said the metal was resisting, that the file was barely making a dent, that ordinary steel wears down in a minute, but this takes an hour. But it's working, slowly. Noah said that slow was normal, that a kingdom is built slowly too. Rachel snorted. Then she told him to eat. She took a bundle out of the bag. Soup, in a clay bowl wrapped in a rag. Still warm. Noah took the bowl. Rachel said a guy needs to eat. That she didn't know if he was a king or an engineer or whatever, but you can't build anything on an empty stomach. The tabel flashed. Rachel, favorability 20. Noah ate the soup and thought that, of all the gifts he'd received over the past 17 days, the bowl of soup was the best. Day 18. The web sensor in Tunnel 1 broke. Noah woke up to a signal on the tabel. Something heavy had entered the tunnel. He opened the data. Vibration, footsteps, 1 person, heavy, wearing boots with metal toe caps, walking confidently, not looking back. Castiel. Noah stood up. His heart was beating steadily. His hands weren't shaking. He walked toward the fork in tunnels 1 and 8. His position was above, on the ledge above the fork, 3 meters above the floor, in the darkness, invisible. Castiel was walking down tunnel 1 with a torch, tall, thin, black cassock, hood thrown back, shaven head, a face like an axe, narrow, sharp, dark eyes, calm, a silver cross around his neck, a torch in his right hand, a staff in his left, not for support defense, for striking. Noah watched him move, like a fighter, like a man accustomed to the possibility of being attacked in the dark, and unafraid. Castiel reached the fork in the tunnel. He stopped, raised the torch, looked around. Noah held his breath. Castiel looked at the columns, at the ceiling, at the floor. Then he stepped forward, right into the center, between the 4 columns. Noah gave the order. 10 rats from Tunnel 8 surged toward the far column. All at once. They crashed into it. The column, which had been weakened for 5 days, wobbled. Bricks rained down. Castiel looked up. Noah gave a second order. 5 slugs on the ceiling released an acidic secretion onto the joints of the second column. The mortar sizzled. The column gave way. The vault groaned. Castiel understood. Noah could see it on his face. Instant comprehension. A trap. Castiel lunged backward, quickly. Very quickly. For a thin man in a cassock, he moved like a beast. The vault collapsed. 3 cubic meters of brick and earth. A crash. Dust. Darkness. The torch went out. Silence. Noah waited. A minute. 2. 5. The dust settled. He jumped down from the ledge. He approached the rubble. He searched through the rubble. A body lay beneath the bricks, motionless. Noah stood and stared. The first person he had ever killed. Not in a fight, not in battle. A cold, calculated act. An engineering solution. He expected to feel horror, or guilt, or relief. He felt nothing. Emptiness, like white noise. Then nausea set in. Noah stepped aside and threw up. For a long time, painfully, on an empty stomach. He vomited and thought that Rachel's soup had gone to waste. Then he straightened up, wiped his mouth, breathed, steadily, deeply. The emptiness was gone. What remained was fatigue and understanding. Day 20. The city was buzzing. The death of Inquisitor Castiel hadn't gone unnoticed. The church announced that Brother Castiel had died in the line of sacred duty. The official version, an accident in the sewers. Unofficially, all of Valancourt was discussing the note in the fountain. Sanitation had failed. Some laughed. Some were afraid. Some wondered for the first time if something with a sense of humor lived beneath the city. Noah worked. Every day. Non-stop. Chamber 39 had been expanded. 2 additional filters. Daily output, 4.5 cubic meters of clean water. Enough for 150 people. Not enough. But the wells of Lower Ash were slowly being cleared. Tunnel 42 was still blocked. They were clearing Morin, but slowly. Noah was preparing a second collapse in another section, just in case. Feeding the subjects was working. Rat number 1 reached a loyalty level of 50. The first one. Plus 1 crown point per day. Forever. Noah felt it like a click in his head. Small. Quiet. As if a light bulb that hadn't been there before. 2 days later, rat number 7 also reached 50. Another point. Then number 23. Then number 44. By the 20th day, 5 subjects were at the 50 mark. 5 points per day. Total crown points, 287. The title, Shadow of the City. Geosensory at 500. Still a long way to go, but closer. Lyra worked every day. Her network was growing. 12 pickpockets, 7 maids, 3 errand boys from noble households. Information flowed down. Noah knew the schedule of every patrol. He knew when Duke Morin had dinner. He knew that Julian Morin was getting more and more nervous, that the tunnel was blocked and the barrels were full, that his father yelled at him every evening, that Julian had started drinking. Noah knew and waited. Rachel went down every day. She worked with deep steel, a metal file, hour after hour. The blade blank took shape, rough, but a shape nonetheless. The blade, the hilt, the balance. Rachel said the metal was alive, that it resisted but didn't reject, that ordinary steel was docile. This wasn't. This demanded respect. Nona watched Rachel. Noah noticed that Nona stood closer to the blacksmith than to anyone else. Maybe because Rachel couldn't see Nona. Maybe because Rachel smelled of iron and grief, and Nona knew that smell. Day 22. Rachel came in the morning and said she was ready. Noah asked what for. Rachel said she was ready to open the entrance beneath the blacksmith's shop, that she had moved the anvil against the wall, that the floor had been cleared, that she wanted to see what Marcus had seen. Noah went up to the surface. He entered the blacksmith's shop. Rachel bolted the door shut. She drew the curtains over the windows. Noah stood over point 8 on the map. The floor, stone slabs. Beneath them, a shaft, sealed. He activated the Lord's voice. -50 crown points. It hurt. His points dropped to 237. But the seal gave way. The stone beneath the slabs hummed. A crack ran across the floor. A slab shifted. Beneath it, darkness. A shaft, vertical, with chipped steps. Warm air rose from below. Rachel watched. Then she knelt down at the edge. She ran her hand along the steps. The stone was smooth, polished by thousands of footsteps over the centuries. She said quietly that Marcus had walked here. Noah didn't answer. Rachel stood up. She said that the Donovan's forge was now the upper gate of the underground kingdom, that she would stand guard, that no one would enter or leave without her knowledge. The tab flashed. Rachel, favor 30. Now Noah had 2 exits to the surface, shaft 5 and the upper gate. 2 routes, 2 escape routes, 2 ways to deliver water, and 1 blacksmith standing between the worlds. Day 25. Noah put on Lyra's doublet for the first time. Dark blue, worn but presentable. Pants, shirt, boots. He looked at his reflection in the basalt floor. A different person. Not a Ratcatcher, not a beggar. Someone. Nona said he looked almost like a king. Noah said almost was his favorite word. He made his way up through the upper gate, Rachel's blacksmith shop, the door, the street, the upper city. For the first time, the timer was on. 6 hours. Noah walked through the streets of Valancourt and counted. The distance from the blacksmith shop to the market square was 400 meters. From the square to the noble quarter, 800. From the quarter to the Astor estate, 1,200. The Astor house stood on the corner of Silver Linden Street. Small by noble standards. 2 stories. A garden behind a fence. A rusty gate. A family that had fallen on hard times. Once great, not anymore. Lyra had done some digging. Miss Caroline Astor was 22 years old, the youngest daughter, the only one still unmarried. In 6 weeks, she was to be married off to Duke Caspian Morin, an old man, Julian's father. A debt settlement. The Astor family owed the Morins so much that the only possible ransom was a living person. Noah stood by the gate. He was thinking. He couldn't just walk up and introduce himself. He was a nobody, a beggar in a doublet. He needed a reason. He needed an excuse. He needed a coincidence that wasn't a coincidence. Rats. 3 rats from the western sector. Noah had sent them into the Astor garden 3 days ago. They found their way in through a crack in the foundation. They searched the house. They found Caroline's bedroom on the 2nd floor. They found a chest by the bed, with a false bottom. Caroline didn't know about the false bottom. Noah knew. Nona had told him. Caroline's grandfather was the last archivist to hide the chronicles of the 12th dynasty. The chronicles in the chest, under the false bottom. 300 years. Noah couldn't take the chronicles. Not now. But he could use the knowledge of their existence as a bridge to Caroline. Later, when the time came. Right now, he needed something else. He needed the Morins' debt archive, the list of debts the Morins held over the noble families. If he destroyed the Astor family's IOUs, the deal to sell Caroline would collapse, and she would be free and grateful. And that would be the 4th point, an informant in high society. Noah returned to the underground. The timer was set for 4 hours. He looked at the map. The Morin estate, Tunnel 42, blocked. But nearby was Tunnel 43, narrow, old, forgotten. It didn't lead to the sewers, but deeper beneath the house, beneath the basements. Noah sent the rats to scout it out. Tunnel 43, results in 2 hours. Tunnel 43 opened onto a wall in the Morin estate's basement. The basement was a storage area, chests, boxes, papers, us, financial documents, all in one place. Security, one lock, one door, no guards inside. The Morins weren't afraid of thieves in their own basement. They didn't know the basement had a second entrance, one just big enough for a rat. Noah had a plan. He didn't need to steal all the documents. He needed just one IOU, the Astor family's debt. Rats could carry the scroll away. A single rat could haul a scroll weighing up to 50 grams. The IOU was a single sheet of paper, 20 grams at most. Noah sent rat number 7, the best of the best. Loyalty, 50. Commander of the southern sector, smart, fast, precise. The mission: sneak through Tunnel 43 into the Morin basement. Find the document bearing the Astor seal. Bring it back. -3 points. Rat number 7 disappeared into the darkness. Noah waited. 1 hour. 2. By the 3rd hour, she returned, the scroll clenched in her teeth. Noah unrolled it. An IOU. The Astor family. Amount: 4,000 gold crowns. Due date: 2 years overdue. Collateral: the family's estate and the right for their youngest daughter to marry a representative of the Morin house. Signature: Caspian Morin. Seal: House of Astor. Noah held Caroline's freedom in his hands. A single scroll, 20 grams of paper. Without this paper, the Morins cannot prove the debt. Without the debt, there is no deal. Without the deal, there is no wedding. Caroline is free. Noah placed the receipt in a niche, next to a cup, a sword, a doublet. 4 objects, 4 people. Each object is a bridge. Each is life. 20 days until the decree. Noah began to assess his forces. Day 27. Noah slept 3 hours a day. The rest of the time he was building. Chamber 39 had been turned into a work center. 4 filters. 6 cubic meters of water a day. Enough for 200 people. Lyra organized the distribution. 10 young boys from her network served as runners. Each carried a water bag. Each knew his route. Each knew the password. Water flowed to Nizhny Pepel through 10 channels. No one knew where it came from. People took it as a miracle. Recognition points trickled in, 2 or 3 a day, slowly but steadily. Total recognition points, 47. 100 to go until the next title. Noah went deeper than usual, down to the 13th level of the underground, to where the tunnels ended and natural rock began. He was looking for methane, biogas from organic deposits. In Chicago's sewers, methane was the enemy. Here, it would be fuel. Noah found a gas pocket at the junction of tunnels 28 and 29, a natural accumulation. The pressure was low but steady. He built a primitive gas outlet, a clay pipe, sealed with slime, leading to chamber 39. He routed the gas to a niche in the wall. He lit it, a flame, small, blue, steady, a methane burner. Noah built a sheet iron tank over it, which Rachel had brought from the blacksmith shop. A 20-liter tank. Water from the spring flowed into the tank. The gas heated it. Hot water in 40 minutes. The first hot shower in the history of the underground kingdom. Noah stood under the stream and closed his eyes. Hot water. Such a simple thing. He used to shower every day in Chicago and never gave it a second thought. Here, it was an event. Eden arrived that same day. Through the upper gate, Rachel let her in. Eden came down the shaft in a gray dress and a monocle. In chamber 39, she saw the shower. She saw the steam, warm, moist, smelling of cleanliness. She stood there and watched. Then her lips began to tremble. Then tears streamed from beneath her monocle. She cried quietly, silently. Noah asked if everything was all right. Eden said that for 9 years she had washed with cold water in a stone cell, that hot water in the order was considered a sinful luxury, that novices didn't deserve warmth. Noah said that everyone here deserved it. Eden wiped her eyes. Then she asked if she could. Noah left. 10 minutes later, a sound came from cell 39 that Noah had never heard from Iden before. Laughter. Quiet. Surprised. As if a person had remembered how to laugh. The display flickered. Eden. Favorability 30. Then something happened that Noah hadn't planned on. Hani burst in through tunnel 3. She was running, gasping for breath. The rat on her shoulder had dug its claws into a rag. Hani was screaming that Julian Moran is coming down, in person, with 10 people, through the main collector, right now. Noah froze. Then he moved, quickly. Tunnel 1 is blocked off after Castiel, so Julian is coming through another entrance. Which one? Hani said through Tunnel 6. The eastern entrance, by the river. Noah looked at the map. Tunnel 6, wide, 3 meters, with a grate at the entrance. The grate has been cut off. So Moran was prepared. 10 men, armed. Julian in the lead. Noah did the math. He has no traps in Tunnel 6. No time for a collapse. No resources for a direct confrontation. 10 armed men against rats and slugs. Not an option. Or an option, but a different one. Not an engineering one, a biological one. Noah went down to Gertrude, 3.5 meters, white skin, yellow eyes, loyalty 34. He stroked her head. He said he needed help, a lot of it. Gertrude stood up. Noah gave the order. -12 points. Gertrude moved toward Tunnel 6, slowly, with difficulty. 3.5 meters of translucent flesh in a 2-meter tunnel. She filled it almost entirely. At the same time, Noah gave a second order. 200 rats, all 5 sectors, Tunnel 6 side passages. Encirclement. Not an attack, a presence. Third order, all 12 spiders. A web across the tunnel behind Moran's men. Not for trapping, to cut off their retreat. -8 points. Noah took up a position in Tunnel 12 with a side exit to Tunnel 6. He waited. Moran's men were advancing through Tunnel 6. Torches, swords, chainmail. Julian Moran in the lead. 22 years old. Handsome. Black hair, dark eyes. The kind of face women admired at balls. He walked, glancing back over his shoulder. He was nervous. His men were nervous too. For nobles, the sewers aren't just territory. They're hell. The stench, the darkness, the vookies, drops, rustling sounds. They walked, and every step became harder for them. And then eyes appeared ahead, yellow, at chest level, 2 of them. Then the body, white, huge, filling the tunnel. Gertrude. She stood there, staring. Her mouth was closed, but her teeth were visible through the translucent skin of her cheeks. Lots of teeth. The first of Moran's men screamed. The second took a step back. The third dropped his torch. Julian stood there. He looked at Gertrude. His face was pale. His mouth was open. Someone shouted, "Retreat!" They turned around. Behind them was a web, thick, shiny, stretching from wall to wall. And in the web were shadows, spiders, 12 of them, large. Their legs spanned 30 centimeters. Their eyes glistened. Moran's men stood between the salamander in front and the spiders behind, and rats were scurrying along the walls. 200 of them. A wave, a rustle, a squeak, a flurry of gray bodies. Noah emerged from a side passage, calmly, in the darkness. Moran's torches illuminated him from below. Julian saw him, recognized him. His face twitched. He said it was impossible. Noah said it was possible. Julian said that Noah was dead, that Tor had killed him. Noah said that Tor had missed. Julian reached for his sword. Gertrude, behind him, opened her mouth. A sound, low, vibrating, like a trumpet. The walls trembled. Ripples spread across the water on the floor. Julian froze. Noah told him to put down the sword. Julian did. So did his men. 10 swords on the wet stone. Noah approached Julian. Close, within arm's reach. He looked him in the eyes. Julian was scared. Truly scared. For the first time in his life. Noah said he knew about the barrels, about the sludge, about the poisoned water, about the children who were dying. Julian said nothing. Noah said he knew Julian had done it on his father's orders. Julian opened his mouth, closed it. Then he said it wasn't his father. Noah froze. Julian said the order didn't come from Duke Caspian, that his father was also following orders, that there was someone above the Morins. Noah asked who. Julian said he didn't know the name. He only knew that she comes from under the ground, that she talks to his father in the basement, that after their conversations, his father turns pale and doesn't sleep for 3 days, that she ordered them to drain the sludge, that the sludge isn't waste, it's food for something that lives deep down, deeper than the sewers, deeper than the tunnels. Noah listened, and something inside him grew cold. She, from beneath the ground, food for something deep down. He remembered rat number 217, the eastern sector, a large shadow, fast, with teeth. He remembered Nona's words. The eastern sector has been sealed off for 300 years. It's home to something that shouldn't be awakened. Noah gave the order to the slugs. 5 paralyzing slugs from the southern sector, -3 points. The slugs released their secretion, a contact paralytic. Morin's men sank to the floor one by one, not dead, paralyzed, for 6 to 8 hours. Noah left Julian conscious. He paralyzed only his legs. Julian sat in the water and looked up at Noah. Noah ordered the rats to carry the 9 paralyzed people to the exit of Tunnel 6. By morning, they'll wake up and leave. Julian stays behind. Prisoner. -5 points. Noah ordered Julian to be moved to a cell next to the throne room, a dry one, with water. No exit. The tab flashed. The first nobleman taken prisoner, +30 recognition points. Noah sat on the throne and thought. She. Someone underground commands the Morins. Someone even the Duke fears. Someone from the eastern sector. Nona stood nearby. She was silent. Noah looked at her. He asked directly, "What's in the eastern sector?" Nona was silent for 10 seconds. Then she said that the last creature of the old world lives there, that the 12th dynasty locked her away 300 years ago, that the castle is weakening, that the Morin's slime is her food, that someone is feeding her through the cage wall, and that when the castle falls, she will come out. Noah asked when. Nona said she didn't know, but soon. Noah closed his eyes. The decree in 13 days. The creature is in the eastern sector. The Inquisitor is dead, but the church will send a new one. Julian is a prisoner. Morin will be looking for his son. And somewhere up above, Caroline Astor will become the old man's wife in 6 weeks. 13 days. Noah opened his eyes. Enough. Day 30. Noah stood in front of a mirror made of polished basalt and didn't recognize himself. Lyra's doublet, a shirt, pants, boots. His hair was slicked back. His face was clean, shaven. Rachel had given him a razor, a sharp one. A mask covered his face. Simple, black, leather, covering the upper half. Lyra made it, in 3 hours, from scraps. Noah looked at himself and saw neither the Ratcatcher nor the engineer. Someone else entirely. Someone heading to a ball. Caroline Astor. Liberation Day. Noah passed through the upper gate, Rachel's forge. Rachel looked at him. She said he looked like trouble. Noah said he was trouble. He went out. The upper city. Evening. Streetlights. Carriages. Music from the noble mansions. Baron Halder's ball. A monthly event. Open to anyone with an invitation. Lyra had stolen an invitation from a merchant 3 days ago. Noah entered. The ballroom. Marble. Candles. Chandeliers. Women in gowns. Men in doublets. Music. Laughter. the scent of perfume and wine. Noah walked across the ballroom and counted 12 guards, 2 exits, 4 windows, 17 meters to Caroline Astor. She was standing by a column, alone, in a pale blue dress, dark hair tied back in a bun. Her face was calm, beautiful, and empty. The face of a person who, in 6 weeks, would become the old man's property. Standing next to her was Duke Caspian Morin, 62 years old, gray-haired, upright. His face was like a slab of granite. His eyes were cold. He was talking to Caroline. Caroline was smiling, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Noah approached. He extended his hand. He bowed. He asked her to dance. Caspian Morin looked at him, at the mask, at the doublet. The doublet was worn. The boots were the wrong ones. Morin frowned. But it was an open ball. To refuse a dance was an insult to the host. Morin took a step back. Caroline looked at Noah, at the mask, at his hand. She didn't know who he was. No one in the hall did. She took his hand. They danced. Noah didn't know how to dance. The Ratcatcher's body didn't know how. But his body remembered the rhythm. The music led the way. Caroline led the way. Noah followed her and counted the steps, like in a tunnel. Caroline asked who he was, quietly, into her ear. Noah said he was nobody. Caroline said nobody ever came to the balls. Noah said this one had come. They danced, and Noah spoke, quietly, into her ear. He said he knew about the debt, about the wedding, about Moran. Caroline tensed. Her hand trembled on his shoulder. Noah said the IOU was no longer with Moran. Caroline stopped in the middle of the dance. She looked into his eyes through the slits in her mask. Noah said he had the IOU, that Moran wouldn't be able to prove the debt, that she was free. Caroline stood there, breathing. Then she said it was a lie. Noah described the IOU, the amount. 4,000 gold crowns, the signature, Caspian Moran, the Astor family seal, the collateral, property, and the right to marry his youngest daughter. Caroline turned pale. Then she flushed. Then she said that if he was lying, she would find him and kill him. Noah said he wasn't lying. And he said one more thing. He said there was a chest in her house, by the bed, with a false bottom. Caroline froze. Noah said that beneath the false bottom lay what her grandfather had hidden 300 years ago, that she didn't know about it, but she had to find out. Caroline looked at him. Her eyes were wide. Her lips were slightly parted. Then the music ended. Noah let go of her hand. He bowed, turned around, left. The entire hall was watching. No one understood who this masked stranger was. Caspian Moran watched him leave with a look on his face that promised trouble. Noah walked out. An alley. Darkness. Running. The route back to the forge. The timer read 4 hours and 20 minutes. He went down through the upper gate. He sat down in the throne room. He exhaled. Nona was standing nearby. She asked how it went. Noah said he wasn't a good dancer. Nona said that the 12th king was a bad dancer too, but his queen used to say that it doesn't matter how you dance, as long as you know why you stepped onto the dance floor. Noah smiled. Then he grew serious. 10 days until the decree. Moran is looking for Julian. Julian is sitting in a cell beneath the throne room. He eats. He drinks. He says nothing. Noah visited him every day. He brought water and food. He talked to him. He didn't interrogate him. He just talked about Chicago, about pipes, about rats, about how the water system works. Julian listened because he had no choice. On the 3rd day of his captivity, he asked why Noah was feeding him. Noah said that a hungry prisoner is a dead prisoner, and a dead prisoner is useless. Julian asked what use he was alive. Noah said he'd find out soon. Day 35. Lyra brought news. Alaric's troops had begun to mobilize. Barracks on the square. 200 soldiers. Commander, Colonel Drake. The order? In 5 days, enter Lower Ashes. Clear the district. Demolish all buildings. Residents are given 3 days to pack up. Anyone who doesn't leave will be forcibly removed. 20,000 people. 3 days. Lyra said the people were in a panic, that there's nowhere to go, that there's nothing beyond the city walls, that winter is 2 months away, that there are children. Noah listened. Then he stood up. He went to the throne room. He sat on the throne. He closed his eyes. Roots wrapped around his wrists. He opened the register. Crown points, 340. It had increased over the past month. 23 subjects with a loyalty rating of 50. 23 points per day. An army. 399 rats. 60 slugs. 12 spiders. 3 flocks of bats. 1 deep-dwelling salamander. Not enough. Not enough for 200 soldiers. Noah did the math. 399 rats aren't an army, but 399 rats multiplied by 100 is an army. After a month of feeding and management, the population of underground rats had grown. Noah didn't count the wild ones. He counted only his subjects. But the wild rats saw that the subjects were well fed, that the subjects were safe, that the subjects served someone who provided food and warmth. The wild rats came, first by the dozens, then by the hundreds. Noah accepted every one. The voice of the Lord. -1 point for 10 rats. Cheap. Massive. By the 35th day, there were not 399 rats in the tabella. There were 40,000 rats in the tabella. 40,000. Average weight, 340 grams. Total tonnage, 13.6 metric tons. Wave speed, 4 meters per second. And not just rats. The slugs had multiplied, 3,000 of them. Spiders too, 200. Large ones. The flock of bats had tripled in size. Gertrude brought back from the deep tunnels another 4 more salamanders from the deep tunnels, smaller than her, but still 2 meters long each. Noah looked at the table and saw an army. Not a professional one, not a trained one, but an army nonetheless. One that lives beneath the city, one that knows every tunnel, every manhole, every crack. Noah turned to Nona. He said he needed a mass voice to all his subjects at once. Nona said it was possible. The cost? 100 crown points. Noah nodded. He said that in 5 days he would address them all at once, and they would respond. Nona looked at him. Then she said quietly that, "Your Majesty," something else had awakened in the underground, below them. Noah knew. He could feel it through the roots of the throne, a vibration, deep, rhythmic. Something large and ancient was stirring in the eastern sector. The castle was weakening. The creature sensed that it was no longer being fed, and it was waking up. Noah said they should tackle one problem at a time. First, the decree, then the creature. Nona said the creature might not wait. Noah said that in that case, they'd have to deal with both problems at once. Nona fell silent. Then she said he was the first of the 13 kings to speak of this without fear. Noah said there was fear, but there was more work than fear. And as long as there was more work, he would keep working. The 40th day. Noah woke up in the throne room and knew that today was the last day. Not his, the old world's. The throne's roots were pulsing faster than usual, like a heartbeat before a jump. He stood up. He checked the tablet. Crown points, 298. Enough. The army, 40,000 rats, 3,000 slugs, 200 spiders, 9 swarms of bats, 5 deep sea, and something else. 3 days before the final, Noah descended to the 18th level and found a colony of rock-eating worms there. 200 of them, each a meter long, as thick as an arm. They ate stone and released dust that made the air shimmer. Useless in battle, but they could gnaw a tunnel through rock in minutes. Noah recruited them for 20 points. They became his engineering corps. Morning. Noah climbed through the upper gate, Rachel's forge. Rachel stood at the anvil in a full apron. A blade lay on the anvil, deep steel, black with a blue sheen, rough. No guard, no wrapping on the hilt, but a blade. The first in 300 years. Rachel had been working on it for 20 days, with a file, hour after hour, layer after layer. The metal resisted, but she was more stubborn. She held out the blade to Noah. She said it was the best thing she'd ever made. She said Marcus would be proud. Noah took the blade, heavy, warm, alive. He tucked it into his belt. Rachel looked at him. She told him to eat. She brought out a bowl, soup, hot. Noah ate standing up, quickly. Rachel watched and said nothing. Then she said he would come back. She didn't ask. She just said it. Noah nodded. He went out onto the street. Lower ashes, morning, a gray sky, smoke, and a sound. Drums from the square. Troops were forming up. 200 soldiers, chainmail, helmets, spears, shields. Colonel Drake on horseback. The order was read at dawn. The Lower Ashes neighborhood is to be demolished under the sanitation decree. Residents have 3 days to pack up. The deadline passed yesterday. Noah walked through the neighborhood. People stood by their homes. 20,000. Women, children, elderly people, men with clenched fists and no weapons. No one had left. There was nowhere to go. Lyra met him by the well. Hani was beside her, a rat on her shoulder, a whistle in her pocket. Lyra said everything was ready. Noah nodded. He looked up at the sky. The timer was on. 6 hours. He went back down into the dungeon, through shaft 5, the throne room. He sat on the throne, roots wrapped around his wrists and ankles, tightly, tighter than ever. Noah closed his eyes. He activated the mass haul from the Lord, minus 100 crown points. The world shuddered. The voice traveled downward, through the roots, through the stone, through the water, through every tunnel, every crack, every crevice. 40,000 rats heard it. 3,000 slugs heard it. 200 spiders heard it. Salamanders raised their heads. Bats spread their wings. The froze in the rock. The underground hummed, a low sound, a vibration, as if the earth itself had begun to sing. And then, those whom Noah had not called answered, from the depths, from the 18th level, from the 20th, from tunnels that were not on his map. Creatures he had never seen, whom no one had seen for 300 years. Beetles the size of dogs, centipedes 3 meters long, blind fish from underground rivers, moving colonies of fungi. The entire underworld heard the Lord's voice and responded. The register exploded with new entries. The number of subjects was no longer 40,000. It was now 400,000. 400,000 creatures recognized him as their ruler. Nona stood beside him. Her eyes were wide open. She said that nothing like this had ever happened, not even under the first king. Noah opened his eyes. He rose from the throne. The roots released him. He gave the order. Simple, precise, engineering-like. 112 manholes in the Lower Ash district. Each manhole is an exit point. On command, all 112 open simultaneously. The rats come out first. In a wave, 40,000 gray bodies. Speed, 4 meters per second. Moving from the center of the block toward the perimeter, toward the troops. Not an attack, a wall. A living gray wall between the soldiers and the houses. Behind the rats come the slugs, 3,000 of them. They line up in a row and raise shields made of hardened secretions. Transparent, shiny, a wall upon a wall. Then the spiders. 200 giant spiders climb onto the rooftops and spin their webs. A web over the neighborhood, from house to house. A silk dome. Not for protection from above, for effect, so that every soldier would look up and see that the sky above Lower Ash no longer belongs to humans. Then the salamanders. 5 white bodies crawl out of the main sewer, 3.5 meters long each. Gertrude in the lead. Yellow eyes, open jaws. They stand at the neighborhood gates, living sentinels. And finally, the bats. 9 swarms, thousands, a black cloud. They rise from manholes and blanket the sky for 10 seconds. A shadow falls over the square, over the troops, over Colonel Drake, over his horse. The horse rears up. Noah gave the order. 1400. Surface temperature, 16 degrees. Wind from the northwest. Cloud cover, 70%. 112 hatches opened simultaneously. Valancourt shuddered. The soldiers stood at the edge of the corridor. Colonel Drake raised his hand, the order to advance, and then an army emerged from beneath the ground. First, a sound, a rustling, quiet at first, then louder, then deafening. 40,000 rats, a gray wave, from every manhole, from every grate, from every crack. They weren't running toward the soldiers, past them, between their legs, over their boots, across their shields. The wave flowed around the troops like water flows around stones, and formed a wall behind them. The soldiers stood surrounded by a ring of rats. None of them bit, none of them attacked. They just stood there. 40,000 pairs of eyes stared at 200 men with spears. Then the slugs, then the spiders on the roofs, then the web in the sky, then the salamanders at the gates, then the bats. Shadow, silence. Drake sat on his horse in the middle of a living sea. His face was pale. His hands were on the reins. He didn't give the order to attack, because there was no one to attack. The army did not attack. The army stood still. Then Noah brought Julian out, from the tunnel through hatch 7, bound, a noose around his neck. The noose was woven from spider silk, thin, stronger than steel, beautiful. Julian knelt in the mud before the quarters gates. Noah stood behind him in a mask, a blade of deep steel at his belt, his face hidden. Duke Caspian Moran arrived 20 minutes later, on horseback, accompanied by 10 horsemen. He saw his son on his knees. He saw the noose. He saw the army. He saw the web in the sky. He saw the salamander. His face. Noah would remember that face forever. The granite slab cracked. Duke Caspian Moran, the kingdom's third greatest treasure. 62 years of power and cruelty. He dismounted. He approached. He stood facing Noah. He asked what he wanted. Noah said that the sanitation decree was being revoked, right now. The Duke said that the decree had been signed by the king. Noah said that the Duke would find a way. The Duke looked at his son. Julian was kneeling and silent, a silk noose around his neck, mud on his pants, eyes downcast. The Duke looked at the army. 40,000 rats, 3,000 slugs, 200 spiders, 5 salamanders, a spider web in the sky, and one man in a mask wielding a blade that hasn't existed in this world for 300 years. The Duke sank to his knees, into the mud, for the first time in his life. He removed the ring from his finger. He placed it in a puddle. He said the decree would be revoked, for sanitary reasons. Noah stood and watched. Then he nodded. He gave the order. The army retreated. The rats scurried into the manholes. The slugs vanished. The spiders took down their webs. The salamanders slipped into the sewer. We, the flying ones, scattered. 5 minutes later, the square was empty, as if nothing had happened, just mud, and the Duke's ring in a puddle, and 20,000 people at their homes who didn't know what had happened, who had seen the army and didn't understand, who would wake up tomorrow in their homes, alive. The interface flashed, plus 2,000 recognition points. Title updated, Nightmare. Noah stood on the roof of a building in the center of Lower Ash, alone, wearing a mask. The wind ruffled his doublet. 20,000 people lay beneath him. They didn't know his name. They would never know. He took off his glove. He looked at his hand. Clean, unscathed. Fingers that, for 24 years in a foreign body, had never known a single unbroken day. Noah said quietly, "It seems I've built a farm after all." The wind carried his words away. Noah climbed down from the roof. He returned to the underground, through shaft 5, through tunnel 3, through tunnel 15, past Gertrude, who raised her head and looked at him with yellow eyes, through a breach in the wall, into the throne room. Nona was waiting. She was smiling, not just at the corners of her lips, but with her whole face, for the first time in 400 years. Noah sat down on the throne. The roots wrapped around him gently, warm, like an embrace. He closed his eyes. He was tired. His body ached. His back was shooting with pain. His knees were throbbing. But inside it was quiet, for the first time in 40 days, quiet and warm. Then the floor cracked. Not the throne, not the walls, the floor. The crack ran from the eastern wall to the center of the hall, slowly, with a crunch. The basalt split. Light streamed from the crack. Not green like the light from the roots, red, dark, hot. And from the light, a crown rose. A second one, not made of bone, metal, black, with facets like a crystal. It hovered in the air above the crack, rotating slowly. Nona stopped smiling. Her face turned white, whiter than usual. She stepped back toward the wall. Noah rose from the throne. He looked at the crown. Then a figure emerged from the crack. Human, or almost. Noah's height, Noah's build, Noah's face. His own face. Only the eyes were different. Red, a vertical pupil, like Gertrude's. The figure stood before the throne and looked at Noah. Then it spoke, in his voice. It said that his brother was 300 years late. It said it was time to divide. Noah stood there. He looked at his reflection with red eyes, at the second crown floating in the air, at the crack from which heat was emanating, at Nona, who had pressed herself against the wall. Then he did what the engineer from Chicago did whenever something unexpected happened on site. He sat down. He poured water from the pitcher into Nona's cup. He took a sip, set the cup down, looked at the figure, and said that before dividing, one must calculate, because an engineer calculates first, then acts. The figure blinked. Red eyes stared at him. Noah didn't look away. He sat on a throne of bones, in the body of a 24-year-old Ratcatcher, with a blade of deep steel, with a cup glued together by a slug, with 4 women waiting for him upstairs, with a little girl who had a whistle in her pocket, with 400,000 subjects, and with that which lived beneath the throne and had just awakened. The second era was beginning, but the first had ended. 20,000 people were sleeping in their homes, alive. The decree had been revoked. The Duke was on his knees. The Inquisitor was in the fountain. The water was clear. Lyra's brother was walking. Nona's cup was intact. Marcus's ring was on Rachel's finger. The whistle was playing. Caroline was free. Aiden took off her hood, and the Ratcatcher of Lower Ash sits on the throne of the 12 dead kings and drinks water from an intact cup. The city had been built over 300 years, looking up. It was time to look down.